Chapter 1241. This commotion was even more frightening than before. Many people were astonished. They looked up, thinking that another powerful titled Douluo had made a move. However, they didn't expect to see a soul beast in midair. Zhang Lishuan saw Wang Feng the moment he made his move. She had been ordered by the academy to fetch the great sage from the wind-hidden cliff so that they could participate in this year's tournament. She didn't expect to encounter such a calamity when she was passing by. The two seniors from the wind-hidden cliff naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch. Great sage. The word sage was not something that was easily bestowed. The wind-hidden cliff had been passed down for a long time. It was the place where the gods had passed down their legacies. They claimed that they inherited the will of heaven and earth, and that they weren't afraid of death or decay. However, they were also humans, and naturally wouldn't be afraid of evil soul beasts. This was why they made a move to prevent evil from happening again. Wang Feng, Zhang Lishuan muttered softly. She had a beautiful face and a graceful figure as she stood in the wind. The full moon behind her made her look like a fairy on the moon. I didn't expect you to finally return after a year. Zhang Lishuan looked up at the figure in midair. She saw a ball of void divine light in his palm. He looked like a god descending from the heavens. His aura was majestic, and he didn't seem like a mortal. She looked at the purple lightning descending from the sky and fell into deep thought. His abilities were becoming more and more unfathomable. Zhang Lishuan sighed in her heart as she recalled the battle in the Academy's soul dueling arena. Even with his soul power rank, his speed had increased tremendously. It had only been a year and a half, but he had gone from level 10 to level 40. It was simply shocking. Zhang Lishuan controlled her full moon and flew up. The smile on her face was as bright as the moon. So it was you. I was wondering who else could do this. Wang Feng, it hasn't even been a year. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Her tone was a little surprised, a little disappointed, and a little happy. Wang Feng smiled and looked at the girl in front of him. He felt that her aura was reserved, and her full moon was clear. Her soul rings were dazzling. She must have solved her problem with her soul rings. Even his soul power rank had increased by 5 rank. It was likely that he had obtained some good fortune. It was important to note that Zhang Lishuan had been a rank 72 soul sage, and she had given birth 5 times in a year. She wasn't even 24 years old yet. He would definitely step into the realm of Soul Douluo at the age of 25. He had both talent and luck. He was indeed a leading figure in the Shrek Academy. You found the demon-transforming beast? Wang Feng asked with a smile. Thanks to you, I went to the Great Star Do Forest 4 months ago and found it. Zhang Lishuan nodded slightly. According to your instructions, I have signed a life contract with this demon-transforming beast. My abilities have increased slightly, and the problem of my soul ring has been resolved. Congratulations. Wang Feng glanced ahead. Those two are from Hidden Wind Cliff, right? Let's go and take a look first. The two of them have used their martial soul true bodies and soul fusion skills to unleash such powerful attacks, but the river water they've absorbed is very troublesome. What trouble? Zhang Lishuan asked. Wang Feng then told him about the dark devil chi. Zhang Lishuan's expression changed slightly, and she immediately flew over with Wang Feng. At this moment, the two of them had already stopped using their martial soul fusion skills, and were standing on opposite side. However, the situation wasn't like what Wang Feng had described. They were just a little pale. The man was called Feng Qin, and the woman was called Feng Jiu. They were both great sages of Hidden Wind Cliff, and were both titled Douluo above rank 98. They were both very strong. After a brief introduction, Wang Feng realized that the two of them were very old. They were at least 100 years old, but they looked like they were in their 30s. Although the river water contained special energy, our martial souls were tornadoes. They were martial souls bestowed by the wind god. They were born with the ability to cleanse and remove any energy from tornadoes. That's why we immediately used our soul skills to remove that energy after we absorbed the river water. It didn't affect us much. Feng Qin explained. Wang Feng was enlightened. These powerful individuals from the land of inheritance were indeed extraordinary. On the other hand, when you attacked just now, your divine lightning was vast and mighty. It's hard to imagine that this is the power of a soul master. Feng Qin sized up Wang Feng. His expression was calm, but his eyes were flickering. Those who didn't know would think that a true god had descended. Wang Feng smiled and said, "If I say that I'm a true god, would you believe me?" "I don't." Feng Qin laughed. "Even a true god isn't as handsome as you." "Feng Jiu, what do you think?" Feng Go was a woman with a graceful figure. She looked like a woman in her 30s, but she wore a special robe. The robe was branded with cyan profound runes, and the back of the robe had the image of a soul beast. There was also the image of a tornado between her eyebrows. There didn't seem to be anything special about her. The two of them were brother and sister, and they were also partners. They were born with special tornadoes, and they were recognized as the inheritors of Hidden Wind Cliff's great sages. After 100 years, they finally had their current achievements. From what I see, you look quite similar to a man whom the human woman who inherited the Wind God was infatuated with on the Hidden Wind Cliff. Feng Ming smiled. "Oh? Senior, who was the girl who inherited the Wind God last time?" Zhang Lishuan immediately asked curiously. "You humans don't know about Hidden Wind Cliff. You only know about the story of the sea god Tang San and the story of the white-robed Popetiff Wang Feng. However, what they didn't know was that in the 100 years after their story had settled down, there was a human female genius who came to my Hidden Wind Cliff and went through countless hardships to obtain the recognition of my Wind God. She inherited the Wind God's position and became a legendary powerhouse," Feng Qin added with a smile. He had an elegant figure and a jade-like face. He was quite handsome, but his hair was green, and his temperament was calm. He looked more like an uncle. Wang Fengxin said. How could he not know who it was? It was definitely Zhu Zhuqing. However, the continent had already settled down. Zhu Zhuqing entered Hidden Wind Cliff alone and obtained the Wind God's inheritance. She must have had a different encounter. She must have been tempered. Then, she inherited the Wind God's divine position. However, it was impossible for most people to know about this. The Wind God wasn't as famous as the Sea God. Everyone knew about the Sea God's island, but they didn't know about Hidden Wind Cliff. Everyone knew that the Shrek's 7 monsters had all become God-ranked expert. However, other than the Sea God Tang San, no one else was famous. Even the Sea God Tang San only came to Sea God's island later and appeared in front of everyone. Everyone only knew that Tang San's ancestor had become a sea god. Who is that girl? Zhang Lishuan asked. Feng Qin and Feng Ming smiled but didn't say anything. They only looked around and said, Let's deal with this situation first. Oh right, is that your soul-bonded beast? On our way here, I heard this girl say that you were the one who created the soul-bonded beast. I believe that such a powerful soul-bonded beast must belong to you, right? As he spoke, Feng Qin looked at the frozen furious dragon river and couldn't help but exclaim, to be able to freeze tens of miles of river with one breath. This power should be above the ultimate power of absolute ice. I didn't expect to see such a peerless soul beast here. The two of them had ancient inheritances and vast knowledge. They were much stronger than Muin. Although they didn't recognize Qilin Lord Bingmu, they knew about the power of absolute ice. I didn't expect the two of you to know about the soul-bonded beast. End of chapter. Chapter 1242. Wang Feng was a little surprised as he looked at Zhang Lishuan. It had been a long time since his lecture at the academy. Wang Feng didn't notice any obvious changes along the way. Hence, he didn't think that he could make the entire continent accept soul contractors. Feng Go glanced at Zhang Lishuan and suddenly said, This is all thanks to Miss Zhang. She kept introducing us to soul contractors along the way. Zhang Lishuan's face turned red when she heard that. She hurriedly explained, Elder Feng, I didn't keep introducing it. It's just that you asked about the demon-transforming beast beside me. That's why I mentioned it. Ha ha ha, a few sentences? Feng Go chuckled. Elder, my ears are getting tired of hearing you talk about how good soul contractors are. If you didn't have the Shrek Academy's token, I would have suspected that you were brainwashed by some evil cult. Zhang Lishuan's face was red, but she still smiled and said, Our academy is very popular with soul contractors now. Many soul masters have already become soul contractors. Apart from the high-tier soul contractors, there are a few other academies that are trying to copy them. I think that this competition will make the name of soul contractors known throughout the continent. Zhang Lishuan glanced at Wang Feng as if to say that the academy didn't let him down. Wang Feng smiled. Following this, the group quickly landed upstream and supported the frozen raging dragon river. The three of them worked together and planned to temporarily rebuild the broken dam. They also sent a letter to the Federation headquarters to send the Federation's engineering division to repair it. This dam was thousands of meters long and wide. The raging dragon river was 7,000 to 8,000 meters wide. It wasn't easy to build a dam there. Coupled with the strong currents, it was very difficult to build a dam. Otherwise, the raging dragon river wouldn't have been such a huge threat to humans. One or two people wouldn't be able to do it. They would need a huge team with all kinds of support to repair it. This raging dragon river is so vast. It's really extraordinary. During the Great War of the Soul Beasts, my hidden wind cliff didn't show up. We're ashamed. Feng Qin sighed and said, Now there are evil soul beasts wreaking havoc, and the outside world is invading us. If we hide in a corner, I'm afraid that the world will cease to exist. The Shi Douluo is right. Feng Go also said in a low voice, As great sage Feng Yinya, we claim to be virtuous, but we have no virtuous deeds. We are truly ashamed. When Wang Feng heard this, he didn't expect the Shi Douluo to personally persuade him. However, Shi Yu was truly a formidable person. The Cliff of Hidden Wind was so mysterious. Even if she knew the name, she might not know the location. Apart from us, I've also sensed that the people from the other gods' land of inheritance should have all come out. Presumably, they were all invited as well. Perhaps we can even find a suitable successor during this trip and obtain the position of successor. It can be considered as fulfilling the clan's wish. Feng Qin looked at the frozen river and slowly said, The dam here is broken and extends for thousands of meters. Although it is temporarily frozen, it is not a long-term solution. With the help of the black wind, the two of us can move a tall mountain to temporarily block the gap. However, it will be very troublesome to repair it later. The two of them were powerful, but in the face of the current situation, they were somewhat at a loss. Zhang Lishuan pondered for a moment and suddenly thought of Wang Feng's other soul-bonded beast. It seemed to be a rock dragon. Controlling the power of the earth and rocks might be able to help. She couldn't help but look at Wang Feng. However, she could only see Wang Feng's calm expression. His eyes were calm, as if he was waiting for something. After a short while, Zhang Lishuan saw a huge rock dragon in the distance. There were several mountains on its back, and it was huffing and puffing as it flew over. Wang Feng abruptly flew out, his soul rings faintly discernible. He whispered, Landslide. Long Xian nodded and roared furiously. His body shook and the mountains were flung away. Compared to the raging dragon river, these few small mountains that were only a few dozen meters tall were nothing. The depth of the raging dragon river was at least 50 meters. The taller ones were even more than 100 meters. If a mountain fell, it would sink. Landslide was Long Xie's 10,000-year soul skill. This was an extremely powerful soul skill that combined both control and attack. Furthermore, it was an attack that covered an extremely large area. When used here, the effect was naturally to cause the broken dam of the raging dragon river to break apart, and a long river was formed in the middle. Even the area that was frozen quickly cracked open. This area of the raging dragon river seemed to have an angry dragon twisting the wind and clouds at the bottom. The moment the crack opened, the mountains changed shape under Long Xie's control and embedded themselves into the broken dam. They were embedded into the frozen area. "All right." Wang Feng nodded slightly and turned to look at the three of them. "This is a trick. Using the mountains to fill in the gap. Although my soul-bonded master can control mountains and move earth, the materials of these mountains are ordinary. They can only be used to fill in the gap for a while. In the future, we'll have to add new materials and refine them." Feng Qin and Feng Jiu were both stunned. What a soul-bonded master! Feng Qin laughed and said, "Humans can use the power of soul beasts to do many things that humans can't do alone. There are endless changes. If soul-bonded masters become popular among humans, there will be endless changes in the future. We can look forward to it." Along the way, we heard Miss Zhang talk about how powerful soul-bonded masters are. However, we have never seen one before. We are indeed shocked to see one today. Feng Jiu looked down and said slowly, "Freezing the raging dragon river and moving mountains to fill the river. Even titled Douluo have to work together to do this. I didn't expect one person to be able to do it so easily." The two of them looked at Wang Feng. Their eyes were filled with shock. "There aren't any high-level soul-bonded masters participating in this competition. Teacher Wang, you must have returned for this competition, right?" Zhang Lishuan's eyes sparkled. She smiled and said, "I'm really looking forward to your performance in the competition." She changed the way she addressed Wang Feng as Teacher Wang out of respect. Naturally, she could guess a little. Speaking of which, as soul-bonded masters haven't been developed for long, there aren't any high-level soul-bonded masters now. If Teacher Wang can participate in the Pinnacle Group, the name of soul-bonded masters will spread across the entire continent. Zhang Lishuan said softly. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and respect. "High-level soul-bonded master," Wang Feng laughed. Suddenly, he said, "There should be another high-level soul-bonded master in this competition. I'm really looking forward to it." "Oh yes, tell me, how are those little fellows doing?" Zhang Lishuan was stunned. Who could the other high-tier soul contract master be? I've never heard of any high-level soul-bonded masters above rank 70. Even the teachers in the academy don't have one. Suddenly, Zhang Lishuan's heart thumped. She was the only teacher in the academy who had obtained an illusionary demon beast. The rest of the teachers hadn't found any suitable soul-bonded beast. However, she only had one soul-bonded beast. She could barely be considered a high-level soul-bonded master. Is he looking forward to me? Zhang Lishuan's heart thumped wildly as she thought until here. However, she quickly calmed down. She told Wang Feng about the situation of his disciples over the past few days. End of chapter. Chapter 1243. As your eldest disciple, Huoyu Hao is highly regarded by the Academy. In addition to his rare elemental affinity and special soul skills, his soul power has reached rank 27. At the same time, he has shown some talent as a soul engineer, and is highly regarded in the soul tool department. Zhang Lishuan's words weren't out of Wang Feng's expectations. Huoyu Hao was actually very talented, and the Skydream Ice Worm was still with him. As long as the Skydream Ice Worm didn't act recklessly, others would only think that it was Huoyu Hao's soul beast. There's also his partners, Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao. These three fellows can be considered the Iron Triangle, and are one of the representatives of the Academy in the youth group tournament. After that, Zhang Lishuan briefly told Wang Feng about these people. Su Sanshur was one of the first batch to become a soul beast. Su Sanshur had all improved greatly. Oh, there's also Jiang Nannan. Zhang Lishuan laughed. She's from the second batch to become a soul beast, and her soul beast is a golden owl. Speaking of which, according to your theory, This golden owl's element isn't suitable for him, because it's an agile flying type soul beast. However, the weird thing is that Jiang Nanan's abilities have increased greatly. This golden owl is also very strong, and doesn't seem like an ordinary soul beast. According to Wang Feng's theory, as an agility-type soul beast, Jiang Nanan had to choose a soul beast that was different from her element in order to increase her fighting strength to the greatest extent. An ordinary agile flying-type soul beast like the golden owl wasn't the most suitable for Jiang Nanan. However, the golden owl's attack was also very strong, but its defense was very weak. Nothing is absolute, Wang Feng replied with a smile. He didn't think too much about it. It's not as good as the compatibility and nurturing between a soul beast and a human. Soul beasts with suitable elemental attributes still need to be nurtured by the soul master. In addition to the relationship between the soul master and the soul beast can unleash strength beyond one's expectations in battle. Jiang Nanan knows that golden owl, so they should be very familiar with each other. If Jiang Nanan is nurtured well, she can still unleash great strength. Zhang Lishuan looked at Wang Feng in shock. Soulbearers have just appeared, and many of my theories are just my personal thoughts. They aren't completely correct. I still need to have a deeper understanding of soul beasts and nurture them before I can fully develop the potential of a soul charmer. Wang Feng said, "Don't think that what I say is definitely right. Thinking about it, weren't soul masters formed through the trial and error of countless seniors? In the beginning, I wonder how many seniors took the wrong path?" Zhang Lishuan smiled as she looked at him. There was a special emotion in her beautiful eyes. "Your Excellency's breadth of mind is even wider than the Fury Dragon River," Feng Qin praised from the side. "You're the one who founded the Soul Contracted Master. If you don't have great ambitions in your heart, you definitely won't impart such a cultivation method to others. What's even more commendable is that you didn't stand still and refuse to make progress, nor are you a good teacher." Wang Feng waved his hand dismissively. His heart wasn't here. The purpose of a soul contractor was to harmonize humans and soul beasts. Wang Feng only wanted to create a soul-contracting master as a start. Naturally, it was impossible for him to plan everything perfectly. The world was always developing and improving, and there would always be people who would delve into it. Soul renters were bound to form a huge system in the future, which was related to many aspects. If Wang Feng insisted on studying all the minor details, he would have to spend a lot of effort. How would he have the time? Wang Feng couldn't wait for someone to delve into the soul-contracted master. Therefore, Wang Feng was happy to see any changes in the soul-contracted master, as long as they weren't bad. Even if they went against some of his theories, it didn't matter. Yes, there's still Xiaotao. Zhang Lishuan suddenly paused. 10 months ago, the inspection department sent a special dark ice fox to the academy. They said that you found it from the extreme north and sent it back to the academy to solve the problem with Xiaotao's martial soul. After hearing this, Wang Feng couldn't help but ask, "Has the problem with Xiaotao's martial soul been solved?" "That dark ice fox cultivates the power of ice. It's from the Linghu clan in the extreme north. Although its element is incompatible with Xiaotao's, it shouldn't reject Xiaotao." Ma Xiaotao was among the first batch of soul-contracted masters to become his disciple. It was only because of her martial soul that Wang Feng had promised to help her solve her martial soul problem. The best way was to find a soul beast that cultivated the power of ice and form a life contract with it. That would solve the problem completely. Furthermore, the dark ice fox was an auxiliary-type soul beast. It was very suitable for the assault-type Ma Xiaotao. A long time ago, only a few soul beasts in the extreme north possessed the power of ice. The Ice Emperor was one of them. However, there were many soul beasts that cultivated the power of ice over the past 10,000 years. "It's not just solved," Zhang Lishuan shook her head helplessly. "After Xiaotao or this dark ice fox, Not only has the problem with her martial soul been solved, her cultivation has also improved tremendously. Even his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Even Elder Mu and Xian Zi found it unbelievable. They don't know why it's like this. They can only say that it's a result of being a soul-contracted master, but you didn't say that soul beasts can affect a soul master's cultivation speed. Alright then. Wang Feng nodded. As for whether Ma Xiaotao's cultivation speed would increase, Wang Feng wasn't too sure. After a soul master and a soul beast formed a life contract, other than the rules set by Wang Feng, there might be other chemical reactions. After hearing this, Wang Feng couldn't help but think of Qin Yu and the Ice Emperor. Perhaps these two had undergone some special changes as well. This time, he wanted to be his opponent in the competition. Would he be able to surprise him? Wang Feng was looking forward to it. After that, he went with the three of them to Martial Spirit City to register. There were people from the Federation to deal with the Fury Dragon River. They didn't have to stay here all the time. Our academy should still be participating in the district competition. However, the representative our academy sent this time is led by Ma Xiaotao. With her strength and the soul-bonding beast, it's basically a one-sided victory. Along the way, Zhang Lishuan smiled and said, "When they come to Martial Spirit City, they will see all of you. I heard from Elder Mu that there will be countless strong individuals in the Apex Group competition. Some of our academy's deans and vice-deans will be participating. If not for Elder Mu and Elder Xian, they would have been invited. Those large sects and ancient family clans will be participating. It might be the grandest competition. Of course it would be grand. If it wasn't, Shiyu wouldn't have invited the strong individuals from the God's Land of Inheritance." End of chapter. Chapter 1244. Although your soul power is only around rank 40, your identity is special. It shouldn't be difficult for you to join the Pinnacle Group. Zhang Lishuan was referring to the fact that Wang Feng's soul power had yet to reach the Pinnacle Group's requirements. However, Xia had given him a special invitation and token. His identity was special, so Wang Feng could participate in the competition without being restricted by the rules. If it wasn't special, Douluo wouldn't have invited us to participate. Feng Qin smiled. The regions where the gods' inheritances are located have always avoided the world. This time we can't avoid it. Feng Qin's eyes were a little gloomy. Wang Feng was thinking that these gods' inheritances weren't just worried about the dark demon world, right? It was more likely that they had lost contact with the god they serve. That was why they had no choice but to come out. They chatted for a while, and they weren't far from Martial Spirit City. Zhang Lishuan wanted to find out what Wang Feng had been doing in the past few months, but Wang Feng only said a few simple words. He didn't say much about the situation in the extreme north. After Xia returned from the extreme north, she didn't publicize the situation there. Presumably, she didn't want many people to know. Whether it was the soul demons, the 10-ringed god-ranked soul power, or the dark demon world, the news was too complicated and shocking. The Federation didn't need to make a fuss to the point where everyone knew. A few days later, Wang Feng arrived at Martial Spirit City. This ancient city that had been around for tens of thousands of years was no longer what Wang Feng remembered. It could even be said that the difference was huge. The towering ancient castle buildings were dazzling. It was a little like the steam style in Wang Feng's memory of his previous life, but it was also very different. This was because there were many soul tools in Martial Spirit City, and there were many cables used to transmit soul power in the air. As the capital of the Martial Spirit Federation, it was the main city. This was a huge city that accommodated tens of millions of people, but it didn't seem crowded because the city was really big. If one looked at it from the sky, they would see that the city was divided into several districts. It was like a pizza that had been cut 3 times. Over the years, Martial Spirit City had expanded countless times. It was also known as the city closest to the Sun-Moon Empire in terms of soul tool technology. It was known as the Federation's Star Soul City. Guards wearing flying-type soul tools patrolling in the air. They were covered in the dim light of navigation, and they were scattered on the wide street that could accommodate dozens of people. There were also special vehicles that shuttled through the streets filled with shop. This made Wang Feng feel as if he had returned to his previous life. However, there was still a huge difference. There was a faint metallic smell in the air. It was the unique smell of soul tool technology. Even Shrek City couldn't compare to Martial Spirit City's structure. The average level of soul guidance technology was at least a few decades behind. However, when he thought about Shiyu's abilities as a Class 9 soul engineer, it wasn't hard to understand why Martial Spirit City's soul tool technology was so advanced. I haven't come out for many years. I didn't expect the humans outside to have developed to this extent. Feng Qin shook his head and sighed. Wang Fengxin said. He reckoned that Fomin Cliff was still at the same level as it was many years ago. There were many people in Martial Spirit City, and soul masters filled the street. There was an endless stream of people coming and going. However, most of the people were heading towards the central city area. This was because the Pinnacle Group's competition was also held in the main city. As Wang Feng walked through the city, he estimated that the Sun-Moon Empire's soul tool technology was more advanced. He reckoned that the city's overall appearance might be 60 to 70% similar to his previous life. After the fifth energy tide, the origin energy of heaven and earth spread across the sea. Evidently, it affected the Sun-Moon Empire. This caused a huge change in soul tool technology. The energy tide produced by Wang Feng's comprehension of the law of life was similar to the awakening of spiritual energy. It didn't only bring about changes to soul masters. It caused a huge change in every aspect of the continent. For example, it caused some minerals to mutate and form new minerals. It also caused plants, spiritual herbs, and all kinds of natural treasures. All of these would affect soul tool technology. Martial Spirit City's security was very good. Even though there were many people, and there were even many high-level soul masters, no one caused trouble along the way. As he walked into the central city area, the surrounding buildings changed again. They were taller and more majestic, and their shapes were exquisite. Even a simple hotel made Wang Feng feel as if he had returned to his previous life. Wang Feng wouldn't have been able to see a hotel that was dozens of stories tall 10,000 years ago. Senior Sister Zhang, these two must be the seniors who were invited to participate in the Apex Group tournament, right? After passing through the gates of the central city area, a man wearing silver-white armor walked over with a smile. The Academy has already instructed me to receive the two of you. Please follow me. There are many participants in the Apex Group this time, and they're all mixed up. We've already captured a few evil soul masters who pretended to be citizens of the Federation. From his attire, this man seemed to be a garrison officer in the central city area. His armor seemed to be made from pure metal. However, Wang Feng could sense that the internal structure of this armor was very intricate. There were even more complicated soul arrays. It was a defensive-type soul tool. Furthermore, it had a certain degree of softness and concealment. When the man walked over, the armor on his body did not make the slightest sound. The Sun-Moon continent seemed to have collided with the Douluo continent 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. There were wars that lasted for at least 1,000 years, and there were frequent conflicts. After that, it took another 1,000 years for the two continents to merge into one. The Federation suppressed the Sun-Moon Empire and made them submit. However, they didn't place much importance on soul tool technology back then. Wang Feng thought to himself, it wasn't until 1,000 years ago that the Federation started to pay attention to soul guidance technology. It was only a few hundred years ago that soul guidance technology really started to develop. It's been a long time, but the Federation has been too stubborn for tens of thousands of years. It's impossible for them to focus on soul guidance technology. Otherwise, the current standard of soul tool technology would be much higher than it is now. The Society of Soul Masters emphasized on tradition. Furthermore, the Federation had been stable for 10,000 years. Naturally, they believed in their own way of doing things. If the Martial Spirit Federation was already on the verge of collapse, and soul tool technology happened to appear, it would be a different world now. Furthermore, the Martial Spirit Federation had been around for 10,000 years. Its internal structure was very stable, and the few times it collapsed, it was slowly resolved. This gave the people of the Douluo continent a strong sense of belonging and trust in the Federation. For example, soul tool technology was similar to the impact of civilization. It was very difficult to accept it in a short period of time. The armor that the man in front of him was wearing could already be considered a rather impressive piece of soul tool equipment. Even if he wasn't a soul engineer, he was at least a rank 70 soul master. This is Siduhan. He just graduated from our academy last year. He was assigned to the Central District of Martial Spirit City. He should be, Zhang Lishuan introduced him. He should be a Class 1 patrol officer in the Central District. The standard soul equipment that you're wearing, Alcade, is at least a Class 5 soul tool. I didn't expect the concept soul equipment that the Lingxi Soul Tool Chamber of Commerce gave out 3 years ago to appear this year. Only Class 1 patrol officers like you are qualified to wear such soul equipment. End of chapter. Chapter 1245. Senior Sister Zhang's eyes are still so sharp. You recognized him immediately. Siduhan laughed. Let's talk as we walk. The Department of Internal Affairs was the organization responsible for maintaining order in the major cities of the Federation. Patrolling officers were similar to the police in Wang Feng's mind. However, these first-class patrolling officers who were equipped with powerful weapons should be at the level of special armed police. The competition was approaching, and the flow of people was increasing rapidly. If this big city wanted to operate safely, it naturally needed various organizations to maintain order. In recent months, the Academy has been in an uproar, especially the matter of soul renters, Siduhan said in a low voice. Siduhan said in a low voice, however, the major sects and clans in the 3 major political districts do not support the Soul Pact Master. They still think that it is a cultivation method that deviates from the orthodox way of cultivation. Many ancient clans even think that it is evil. A few months ago it was quite serious. The Academy must be under a lot of pressure recently, right? Zhang Lishuan paused and shook her head. Actually, the few cities around Shrek City are still alright. Elder Mu had already expected this situation. However, as long as the champion of the youth division is still Shrek Academy, no one will dare to say anything. Wang Feng listened to their conversation and understood. Just as he thought before coming here, it was unrealistic to expect the entire continent to accept soul renters in just a few months. If there was support, there would naturally be opposition. The Academy usually focuses on the youth division. However, the Pinnacle Group competition this time is too big. Not only did Heavenly King Shi invite most of the major sects to participate, he also gave out extremely generous rewards. It's impossible to reject. Siduhan shook his head and said, therefore, many old monsters will definitely appear in this Pinnacle Group competition. It will be troublesome if they make things difficult for the Academy. Elder Mu and Little Xian are both seniors with great foresight and foresight. However, the other old monsters won't be like that. Feng Qin and Feng Go were silent. Their main purpose for coming here was to participate in the competition. They had more important goals. As for other things, they wouldn't care too much. They valued soul renters very much, but that was all. Human society was complicated. They came from the ancient land of inheritance of the gods, so they wouldn't care about the conflicts in the outside world. If not for the invasion of the soul demons, the dark demon realm, and the loss of contact with the gods, they wouldn't have broken the rules and chosen to come out. Zhang Lishuan looked at Wang Feng. This is... Sidu Han's gaze also fell on Wang Feng. From the very beginning, he had noticed this person. Just by looking at his attire, this handsome man who made his scalp tingle was obviously not on the same path as the other two. Vaguely, he felt that it was a little familiar. However, since Zhang Lishuan had brought him here, and she didn't introduce him, he naturally couldn't ask too much about it. Wang Feng smiled faintly and was about to speak. Suddenly, he heard a commotion in the distance. He shifted his gaze and saw a man in his 40s holding his daughter's hand in the distance. Beside him was a special soul beast. Wang Feng recognized the soul beast with a single glance. It was called Amoras. Amoras meant wolf in the ancient language. This type of dog came from the soul beast forest in the west. Its entire body was light yellow, and it looked somewhat similar to a dog. Their attacks were extremely strong, and they looked a little silly. They were very quiet and didn't like to provoke other soul beasts, but they also didn't like other soul beasts provoking them. It was very independent. It was a semi-spiritual type soul beast, and it also possessed a certain amount of fire-type soul beast. The only difference was that it took a relatively long time to mature. Is it a soul-bonding beast? Wang Feng was a little surprised. This wasn't an ordinary soul beast. It was a soul-bonding beast. Strangely enough, Wang Feng would obtain a special kind of energy from any soul-bonding master who signed a contract with a soul beast. Wang Feng had obtained this energy when Huiyu Hao signed a soul contract with his first soul beast. After that, Wang Feng didn't pay much attention to it. He didn't use this kind of energy, so he didn't study it. However, it was because of this special energy that Wang Feng could sense any soul-bonding master who signed a soul contract with him. Even without this feeling, he could tell that this man was a soul-bonding master. Furthermore, he was a rank 71 soul-bonding master. However, this Amoras only had 1,000 years of cultivation. It was very low. However, this Amoras was a reddish-yellow color, and looked very pretty. It wasn't very tall, and was about the same size as the man's daughter. The little girl was riding on this Amoras, and she let out a bell-like laughter. However, the Amoras suddenly flipped the little girl over, and it let out a low roar. It didn't even listen to its soul-bonding master, who was the middle-aged man. It's rare. I didn't expect a rank 60 soul master to become a soul-bonding master. Situ Han was shocked at first, but he quickly walked over. Do you know this person? Wang Feng looked at Zhang Lishuan. No, we don't. Zhang Lishuan furrowed her brow slightly. However, we have already announced life soul contracts a few months ago. This isn't some sorcery. Furthermore, we hope that soul-bonding masters can spread the word. Therefore, it's not rare for other people to become soul-bonding masters. But for spirit masters over 50 years old, even in our elite academy, it is rare for them to become spirit-contracted masters. There are a few teachers who have found powerful spirit-contracted beasts, but it is difficult for most of the mid-tier spirit masters to find a suitable powerful spirit-contracted beast. If they find one that is a few hundred years old, or even 1,000 years old, it will weaken their strength for a short period of time. Therefore, it's rare for mid-tier soul masters to become soul-bonding masters. Wang Feng could understand. This was why it was rare for this middle-aged man to become a soul-bonding master with only one soul-bonding beast. Wang Feng wasn't afraid of announcing his life soul contract, because it couldn't be changed. It couldn't be changed to some sorcery either. This was what he comprehended from the law of life. It was basically impossible to change it. Could only be changed outside of the life soul contract. That would depend on the wisdom of future generations. What's going on? Situ Han walked over with a solemn expression. Suddenly, the three bright patrollers walked over. Looking at their attire, they were obviously inferior to Situ Han. Lord Han, We don't know why this soul-bonding beast suddenly went crazy. It seems like it's going to hurt someone. We wanted to capture this soul-bonding beast, but this soul sage didn't allow us to capture it, one of them hurriedly replied. The competition is approaching. Although the Martial Spirit Palace has a rule that soul-bonding masters can bring soul-bonding beasts into the city, with this situation, we, the other person, seem to be in a difficult position. Sidhu Han's expression turned cold. He looked at the middle-aged man and saw him squatting down and pressing his hands on the soul-bonding beast's head. He seemed to be communicating with it. However, more and more people gathered around. The soul-bonding beast continued to growl and look fierce. At this moment, a laugh suddenly sounded. Lord Han, this soul-bonding beast is as weak as a mouse, but it's affecting the city's appearance in the central city. Moreover, it's a soul beast. I think we should just kill it? Otherwise, there might be trouble. End of chapter. Chapter 1246. The moment the voice rang out, the crowd started to chatter. The soul masters in the central city were all very strong. How could a mere 1,000-year soul beast cause any harm to them? Most of the people surrounding them were just there to watch the show. Why would they be afraid of a 1,000-year soul beast? But no one reacted because the person who spoke had a casual tone, but she had an extraordinary background. The person who spoke was a young and beautiful lady. She wore a luxurious long dress, and there were 2 servants beside her. They were all dressed in black, and they were quiet and stylish. But one look and one could tell that they were not to be trifled with. The lady was about 25 or 26 years old. She had a mocking look on her face, but there was a hint of mockery in her eyes. When she looked at the middle-aged man and the soul beast, the smile on her face became even more pronounced. Kill! The middle-aged man was comforting the Amoras. When he heard this, anger flashed across his face. He was about to stand up, but when he turned to look at the lady, his expression changed. Even though he was a soul sage, he fell silent. This is my soul-bonded beast. It won't hurt anyone. It's just that it's not used to the city yet. Furthermore, Martial Spirit City shouldn't have any laws, right? The middle-aged man looked at the few inspectors. Do we need laws to kill a soul beast? The woman laughed. Have you been a soul sage for the past few decades, all this time been spent on this dog? As for the soul-bonded beast, it's even more laughable. You're a soul sage after all. You actually chose this path and signed a soul contract with a 1,000-year dog. What a joke. The lady looked at the few inspectors. Gentlemen, are you going to continue watching this soul beast pollute the streets of the central city? The few inspectors looked at each other. At this moment, the Amoras suddenly roared at the lady. This beast dares to show its power to me? The lady was furious. It seems like you don't have to do anything. The central city doesn't allow soul masters to fight. But there's no rule that says soul masters can't deal with a soul beast. After she finished speaking, the lady raised her eyebrows at the 2 black-clothed servants beside her. In the next moment, 6 soul rings lit up on the 2 black-clothed servants. A huge wave of soul power swept out in all directions. They were 2 soul emperors. With 2 soul emperors as servants, the central city's soul masters were all formidable. None of them were simple. The moment their soul rings lit up, their martial souls also appeared. It was his martial spirit, an ancient dagger. It looked simple and unadorned, but it was filled with killing intent and cold light. It's the Traceless Dagger. The Shadow Sect. I didn't expect this sect to participate in the competition. Are you kidding me? The champion is a complete set of 100,000-year soul bones that were dropped by 2 soul beasts. Soul equipment. Since 2 soul beasts had dropped them, it meant that 1 soul beast had dropped 3 items. Only the Federation headquarters had the resources to offer such a reward. In fact, the rewards for the Pinnacle Group were very generous. The champion usually got a 100,000-year soul bone, but most of them got less than 3 scattered soul bones. Since the establishment of the Pinnacle Group, 300,000-year soul bones were very rare. Most of them got 2. It was completely incomparable to this competition. But in fact, the continent had experienced 5 soul beast wars. Countless soul beasts died in the wars, but the Federation had a certain amount of soul bones. Some were used for research, some were used as rewards, etc. Wang Feng could hear the whispers around him. Wang Feng frowned slightly. The reward for the Pinnacle Group shocked Wang Feng. 10,000 years ago, not many people on the continent had 100,000-year soul bone. Who would have thought that 10,000 years later, the Federation would be able to take out 100,000-year soul bone as a reward? Fortunately, it was given to the champion of the Pinnacle Group. Only titled Douluo had the ability and qualifications to absorb soul bones. Shadow Sect. Wang Feng glanced at them. At this moment, the soul rings of the 2 black-clothed servants flickered and they directly attacked Amoras. "You're not allowed to hurt Momo." Unexpectedly, the little girl suddenly opened her hands and blocked in front of Amoras. She said with a tender voice. The middle-aged man was shocked and immediately jumped up. 6 soul rings lit up on his body. Compared to the soul ring configuration, the 2 black-clothed servants were yellow, purple, and black. It wasn't a standard configuration. The middle-aged man was slightly stronger, with purple, black, and black. It was a pity that his last soul ring was purple. This person might be a soul sage, but his actual fighting strength might not be comparable to these 2 black-robed servants. The truth was as such. The moment the soul rings appeared, the middle-aged man's martial soul was directly exposed. The quality of his martial soul was relatively ordinary, neither good nor outstanding. It was a beast martial soul, the Earth Wolf. It was a wolf-type martial soul with strong defensive abilities. At the same time, it had good speed, but its offensive power was very weak. The moment the martial soul attached to his body, the middle-aged man blocked in front of the little girl. The 2 black-clothed servants didn't tangle with him. Although the 2 men only had tool martial souls, their physical qualities were extremely strong. One above and one below, they directly passed through the middle-aged man. Like a burst of black smoke, it was very strange. The middle-aged man was stunned. He obviously didn't expect the other party's soul skill to be so special. Not only was his attack speed extremely fast, even his soul skill was so powerful. Like an assassin, he could easily take care of his target in broad daylight. The 2 black-clothed servants turned into black smoke. The moment they passed through him, they passed by the little girl's side. They didn't seem to intend to hurt the 2 of them. Instead, he charged straight at the Amuras. Just as Si-Tu Han was about to speak, he suddenly stopped. If a soul master were to fight in public and attack, the Department of Internal Affairs had the obligation to capture the other party. However, the other party was obviously familiar with the rules of Martial Spirit City. He didn't have any intention of fighting with the middle-aged man at all. Instead, he went straight for the soul beast. This was the problem. If they were to attack the soul beast, they had no obligation to stop them. Just as the girl said, it wasn't good for a soul beast to appear in the city. The impact was too great. Furthermore, this soul beast had strong offensive abilities. On the contrary, the Department of Internal Affairs had the obligation to capture this soul beast. Of course, whether they killed it or not was a completely different matter. In fact, even if they killed it, the other party wouldn't be guilty of anything. This was because if they killed a soul beast, as long as it wasn't from the extreme north, they wouldn't be guilty of anything. Didn't they get to where they were by slaughtering soul beasts? Little Kuan stopped them. Wang Feng looked around and saw that there was no movement. He sighed in his heart and said indifferently. Chapter 1247. The appearance of a soul charmer affected all aspects of the Federation. This seemed like a simple conflict, but in fact, it revealed a lot of problems. The simplest problem was the problem of the law. There weren't many laws against soul beasts in the Federation's laws. There were only a few simple and humane laws. For example, soul cultivators weren't allowed to kill pregnant soul beasts. They weren't allowed to kill soul beasts that were much weaker than themselves. They weren't allowed to kill young soul beasts that were less than 10 years old. These rules and laws were set by the Bibidon in order to preserve the lives of soul beasts when the Federation was established. It was called the Soul Beast Protection Law. After thousands of years, there were some changes, but most of them remained the same. But the appearance of a soul charmer would change everything, hence, Wang Feng knew that it wasn't possible for the continent to accept soul charmers in a short period of time. But Wang Feng couldn't ignore the situation in front of him, because the other party was a soul charmer. In front of the martial spirit city, the little Kuan shark turned into a round ball behind Wang Feng. From afar, it looked like a bag. It was black and didn't look strange. After hearing Wang Feng's order, it flew out immediately. The soul skill was deeply ingrained, and its body was like a round ball that was shining with golden light. But its body suddenly became bigger. As the 100-year soul skill of the little Kuan shark, this move was comprehended after the little Kuan shark was beaten up countless times. Beaten up by Long Xie, the daggers in the hands of the two black-clothed servants shone with cold light as they attacked the Amoras. The little Kuan shark was like a giant metal ball that was equipped with navigation. It suddenly appeared in midair and let out a low howl. Two fan-sized wings allowed the little Kuan shark to circle in the air and defend from all angles. Clang! Two sounds of metal clashing could be heard. Two figures passed by the side of the Amoras. The shimmering daggers landed on the little Kuan shark's body, but they could only leave a faint mark. Then, the daggers were repelled by the little Kuan shark. The two black-clothed servants retreated in midair and landed on the ground, leaving a long mark on the ground. In an instant, everyone was stunned. Woo! The little Kuan shark flew on top of the Amoras and let out a low howl. His body had inherited the appearance of a cowardly Kuan and the ferocious aura of a whale shark. It could be said that in terms of appearance, he was both cute and adorable. However, as long as they were in battle, the two canine teeth on their cheeks could emit a cold and sharp blade. Under Wang Feng's training, the two wings had also developed a special blade. When they opened and closed, they would be able to cause serious damage to the enemy. This was one of the advantages of a small Kuan shark. It was precisely because his bloodline power had disappeared that the direction of his evolution, other than absorbing dark devil chi to cultivate, also depended on how Wang Feng was going to nurture him. In order to maximize the little Kuan shark's attack, Wang Feng used every part of the little Kuan shark's body as a weapon, from the tail to the whole body. The two soul emperors hadn't been able to clearly see what it was. It wasn't until he was pushed back that he realized that it was another soul beast that had blocked the two of them. He couldn't help but feel shocked. Even though they hadn't used their full strength in their previous attack, a 10,000-year soul beast wouldn't have been able to defend against their combined attack. After receiving their orders, they naturally wouldn't hold back, nor would they reveal their abilities. They only wanted to complete their mission with one strike. However, they were slightly taken aback by the fact that another soul beast had made a move. They looked at the young lady at the same time. "Why are you looking at me? It's just a 1,000-year soul beast. It's fine if I kill it," the young lady said coldly. "It was lucky enough to block one of your attacks. Can it block a second one?" Seeing this, the two soul emperors were like yin and yang as they charged forward once again. However, their target this time was the small Kuan shark. "Stop!" From afar, Zhang Lishuan knew that they couldn't ignore this matter when she saw Wang Feng attack. The moonlight was like a bright moon that descended from the 9 heavens. It exuded a suffocating aura. As she spoke, Zhang Lishuan's soul power undulations were unleashed from her body. Her martial soul appeared and turned into a crescent. It flew out like a spiral. However, what surprised Wang Feng was that there were two crescents. Evidently, it wasn't because Zhang Lishuan had two martial souls. It was because of the demon illusionary beast. The other crescent was formed by the demon illusion beast. The demon illusion beast is a rare soul beast. If she can successfully tame it as a soul-bonded beast, it will increase her abilities by a lot. Wang Feng naturally knew how powerful a special soul beast like the demon illusion beast was. It could change its form. Apart from that, it also possessed some of its abilities. For example, the demon illusion beast could transform into Zhang Lishuan's martial soul and unleash two different attacks. This meant that the soul skills Zhang Lishuan used in battle could be multiplied by 2. It was impossible to guard against. When Zhang Lishuan attacked, the two crescents flashed with silver light. Soul masters weaker than Zhang Lishuan couldn't even figure out the trajectory of the crescent. They could only see two streaks of silver light flashing. Following this, the two soul emperors were sent flying. Their faces were pale. Their black robes were torn apart, and there were two streaks of silver light on them. If not for Zhang Lishuan's protection, the two of them would have been split into two. Seeing this, the surrounding people's faces immediately trembled. "It's Zhang Lishuan from the Shrek Academy!" someone exclaimed. He seemed to recognize Zhang Lishuan. Zhang Lishuan was the most talented girl in the inner courtyard of the Shrek Academy. She had participated in the youth category twice. Naturally, she was very famous. Those who came to register for the tournament in the central city were all extraordinary. It was impossible not to recognize her. Wang Feng glanced at Zhang Lishuan. He didn't expect her to interfere in this matter. The academy spread the word about soul-bonded masters. "I can't ignore it." Zhang Lishuan sensed Wang Feng's gaze and smiled. It was a stark contrast to the cold moonlight that enveloped her body. Everyone around her took in a deep breath. "Furthermore, you forgot that I'm also a soul-bonded master now." Wang Feng nodded slightly. At this point, Sidu Han walked out. He looked at the young lady and said, "Miss Ling, this is the central city. It's not the Shadow Genesis sect. Restrain yourself. Although the Federation hasn't announced any new laws regarding soul-bonded beasts, we can't let you kill them. Furthermore, your two subordinates are soul emperors. Dealing with this 1,000-year Amoras is already a violation of the 10th rule of the Soul Beast Protection Act. You can't kill soul beasts that are 10 times weaker than you. Even if there's something wrong with this Amoras, you should let us deal with it. What's the meaning of letting your subordinates fight? Are you looking down on the Federation's laws?" As a first-class patrol officer of the Internal Affairs Office, although Sidu Han was stunned for a moment and felt that the situation was a little tricky, he immediately grasped the other party's weakness. With the support of Senior Sister Zhang, he had the upper hand in terms of momentum. Coupled with the might that he had already cultivated, his words were enough to enlighten the benighted. Tisk Lung Shuang sneered. "So it's Lord Han. You're trying to pin such a label on me? Do you think I'm easily frightened? First of all, it was the Amoras that was attacking me. Under such circumstances, the 10th rule of the Soul Beast Protection Act doesn't apply. Once a soul beast attacked a human, a soul cultivator had the right to kill any soul beast that attacked a soul cultivator as a matter of principle. Do you need me to tell you which rule of the Soul Beast Protection Act this is?" Hearing this, Sidu Han knew that this girl wasn't easy to deal with. On the contrary, Lung Shuang looked at Zhang Lishuan and said plainly, "I didn't break any of the Federation's laws when I ordered my subordinates to kill the soul beast. On the other hand, this fairy Zhang from the Shrek Academy has some tricks up her sleeve. She attacked a soul master in the central city. Shouldn't you capture her and interrogate her?" He immediately pointed the blame at Zhang Lishuan. Sidu Han frowned. In fact, it was just as Ling Shuang had said. To be honest, it was Senior Sister Zhang who attacked as a soul master. To be calculative, Senior Sister Zhang was the one in the wrong. Zhang Lishuan raised her eyebrows and looked at Ling Shuang. She knew about the nascent shadow sect. She also knew a little about this girl. She didn't expect her to be so intelligent despite her appearance. At this moment, Wang Feng slowly walked out and said, "You said that the soul-carving beast was aggressive towards you. Now that you mention it, it's interesting that a 1,000-year soul beast can actually attack a soul emperor with twin martial souls? This really makes me curious." Once he said that, the surroundings went silent. Ling Shuang's eyes flashed with surprise. Her expression didn't change. She looked at Wang Feng and was slightly stunned. Chapter 1248. The reason why Ling Shuang was stunned was because the man in front of her was too handsome. In fact, with the current development of the continent, after the origin energy of heaven and earth became denser, there weren't many ordinary people who were ugly. In other words, their overall appearance had improved compared to 10,000 years ago. This was probably due to genetic modification. However, anyone who saw Wang Feng for the first time, except for some males, they would all think that he was handsome. He was extremely handsome. This kind of handsomeness wasn't just because of his looks, it was also because of his aura. Wang Feng had concealed his aura, but this avatar was extraordinary. Furthermore, he had the angel of light and dark and the 7 origin powers. No matter how much he concealed his aura, he still exuded an aura that was neither good nor evil. However, he seemed to be in harmony with heaven and earth. As long as Wang Feng stood out and spoke, he seemed to be the center of the world. Fortunately, it wasn't Zhang Lishuan's first time seeing Wang Feng. She heard what he said immediately. As she furrowed her brows, she was shocked. Following this, Wang Feng continued. While the Amura's beast is an aggressive soul beast, anyone who knows how to understand soul beasts is familiar with soul beasts. However, anyone who understands soul beasts would know that they prefer peace and quiet. Even soul beasts won't take the initiative to attack, much less humans. They also don't like other soul beasts provoking them. As he spoke, Wang Feng walked over and looked at the Amura's beast that was baring its teeth and howling softly. If one didn't observe carefully, it would be difficult to discover that there was a blood-black light in this soul beast's eyes. Wang Feng placed his palm on the Amura's beast's body. A ball of dim light appeared in his palm. Under this milky white light, the Amura's beast slowly quietened down. Everyone seemed to know something when they heard Wang Feng's words. That's right, soul beasts have intelligence. Those who knew a little about soul charters knew that 1,000-year soulbound beasts were very intelligent. How was it possible for him to be so aggressive in the face of an expert? Soul beasts weren't that stupid. If there weren't other factors, it was impossible. Are you saying that it's because of me? Ling Shuang's face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. She recovered from the shock and said indifferently, "Beasts are beasts. Even if they have intelligence, they are still beasts. The blood in their bones is full of aggression. No matter how intelligent it is, it will be exposed sooner or later." "And who are you?" Ling Shuang glanced at Zhang Lishuan. There was also a man and a woman wearing strange clothes. Wang Feng didn't look at her. His eyes were still on the Amoras as he calmly said, "There's a type of grass called the spirit-dissolving grass. It's a tonic for soul beasts. Normally, it emits a faint fragrance that attracts soul beasts." Hearing this, Ling Shuang laughed and said, "Are you saying that I deliberately used this kind of grass to attract this soul beast to attack me? I'm sorry, I've never heard of this herb. I don't have the fragrance you mentioned." "Did I say it was you? Furthermore, I said that this grass was attractive to soul beasts, but I didn't say that it would cause them to become aggressive." Ling Shuang's expression changed slightly. Wang Feng glanced at her and continued, "Once this grass is doused with the blood of an evil soul beast or infected by a special energy, it will turn into a demon-dissolving grass. Its fragrance will disappear and be concealed. However, soul beasts with a sensitive sense of smell will be able to detect the scent of this demon-dissolving grass and be affected by it." Ling Shuang didn't say anything. It seemed like she didn't want to say anything more. Everyone clearly understood what he meant. That's just your side of the story. Let's not talk about how many people have heard of this demon-dissolving herb. Even if they have, what makes you think that it has something to do with my master? One of the black-robed servants said coldly with a hoarse voice. Wang Feng sized Ling Shuang up. Simple. This demon-dissolving grass will affect the color and aura of a soul master. The longer you carry it, the greater the effect. I'm sure you don't know this, right? You'll know once you release your martial soul and see if there's any problem with it. There are so many people here. I'm sure their eyes won't have any problems, right? Hearing this, the two black-robed servants stopped talking. Ling Shuang's eyes flickered. Miss Ling, please? Sidu Han stood up and said slowly, revealing your martial soul shouldn't be a difficult thing for you, right? I didn't know that the eldest miss of the Shadow Source sect had twin martial souls. Everyone was silent. After waiting for a long time, Ling Shuang suddenly smiled. She looked at Wang Feng and said, the competition is approaching. I'm representing the Shadow Source sect in the youth division. My martial soul is my secret. You want me to reveal my martial soul just based on your words? Sorry, I refuse. Ling Shuang didn't wait for anyone to respond and immediately turned to leave. As for this demon-dissolving grass, I've never heard of it. Since you don't want to deal with this soul beast, then forget it. It's just a beast. As for Fairy Zhang attacking my servant, I'm a magnanimous person and won't bicker with you. Let's meet in the competition. A voice rang out. Only a figure could be seen in the distance. She's guilty, right? Everyone couldn't help but think. A dark light flashed in Wang Feng's eyes. Sidu Han let out a sigh of relief. The Shadow Source sect wasn't simple. It was one of the top sects in the Douluo political district. Moreover, it was one of the more mysterious sections. They usually didn't participate in any competition. This time, because the rewards were too generous, they came to participate in the competition. Wang Feng looked at the Amuras in silence. Big brother, thank you. The little girl next to Amolas winked at Wang Feng. Momo is usually very obedient. I didn't expect him to suddenly go crazy today. Even Daddy can't control him. The middle-aged man also walked over and thanked. Thank you for your help, sir. He saw that Wang Feng had an extraordinary aura and was with Sidu Han, so he thought he was also from the Department of Internal Affairs. Wang Feng smiled. No need. Speaking of which, you were a soul emperor before. Why did you choose a 1,000-year soul beast to become a soul contract master? Even if you became a soul contract master, why didn't you put it in your soul domain space? This was what Wang Feng was most curious about. The middle-aged man only smiled bitterly. Sir, there's something you don't know. My innate soul power was originally rank 7. Now it's rank 44. 3 years ago, I cultivated to rank 68. However, I was attacked by an evil soul beast and my body was injured. I was stuck at rank 68 for 3 years. It was difficult to improve. I tried many methods but it was hopeless. I was disheartened and decided to stay at rank 68. Innate soul power rank 7. Talent was not bad. In theory, he had the possibility of becoming a titled Douluo. But if he was injured, then there was no way. Chapter 1249. Fortunately, I had a wife and a daughter at that time, so my life was passable. Later on, I brought my wife to live in seclusion in a small, remote city and accidentally saved a soul beast, which was this Amora's beast. After saving it, I wanted to release it directly because this soul beast was too weak and I didn't have the intention to kill it. The middle-aged man continued, who knew that after I released this Amora's beast, this little fellow would come to visit me frequently. Once they got acquainted, and this little fellow was very cute, so my daughter fell in love with it. The city I live in is rather remote, so I thought about raising this soul beast as a pet. I can make Lu Air happy when I'm free. The middle-aged man looked at his daughter with a kind expression. Wang Feng nodded slightly, roughly guessing the cause and effect. After living together for close to 2 years, this amorous beast and our family are already very familiar with each other. The middle-aged man sighed and said, "We brought it everywhere. At first, I was worried that this little fellow would attack humans, but I thought that with my strength as a Soul Emperor, I wouldn't be afraid of it. However, after following us for 2 years, this amorous beast didn't even have much desire to attack kittens and puppies, let alone humans. However, due to the environment, we didn't bring this fellow too far away. A few months ago, I heard about the Soul Contract Master, and I happened to be a teacher in an academy. I also knew about the Life Soul Contract, so after returning home, I tried to sign a Life Soul Contract with Momo. I didn't expect to succeed so quickly." The middle-aged man spoke slowly and tirelessly. "After I succeeded, I realized that my soul power rank had increased. In an instant, I jumped to rank 70. This meant that I could absorb a soul ring and become a Soul Emperor. I didn't hesitate to absorb Momo's soul ring. Although it was only 1,000 year, I didn't mind. When everyone heard this, they were stunned. Wang Feng understood. After signing a soul contract, a soul beast would give a portion of its life force to the Soul Master, which could increase the Soul Master's innate soul power rank. It was equivalent to making up for the deficiency. Coincidentally, it healed the middle-aged man's incurable injury. "This is the origin of my soul ring." The man let out a long sigh. "Although my 7th soul ring is only purple, I feel that Momo's intelligence has increased a lot after signing the Life Soul Contract. Even if it's only 1,000-year soul ring, my strength has increased a lot. Furthermore, Momo has become a Soul Contract Master and not a soul beast. Since it could still understand my commands, I thought about bringing it out to see the world. Now that I've become a Soul Contract Master, I've received his favor, so I wanted to see if I could spread it around. Let more people know about it. Take the students in my academy for example. After learning about my situation, they all showed great interest in becoming a Soul Contract Master, and quite a few of them became Soul Contract Masters. The competition this time is so grand. Even though I've just become a Soul Sage, I think it's not a bad idea to show my face in the competition since I'm also a Soul Contract Master." He listened to the middle-aged man's explanation of the cause and effect. A smile appeared on Wang Feng's face. "Big brother, your smile is just right," the little girl suddenly said. "If it's nice, look at it more." Wang Feng looked at the little girl. The little girl giggled and blinked her eyes. "I can't get enough of it. Big brother, is this also your soul contract beast?" The little girl looked at the little Kuan shark flying in midair. "It looks like a ball, and it has 2 ears." The little Kuan shark. Wang Feng laughed a few times. He used the deep-rooted little Kuan shark, but it was like a small rubber ball, and it had 2 ears. It had the shape of a cowardly Kuan, but it didn't have the body of a cowardly Kuan. It was no wonder that the little Kuan shark looked like this now. It was mainly because its cultivation was too young and it hadn't grown up yet. Is a Soul Contract Master so magical? Situ Han was stunned. Senior Sister Zhang, Soul Masters who have been attacked by evil soul beasts will have many problems. For example, their ranks will stagnate, and their cultivation won't be able to break through for the rest of their lives. With the current ability of the Federation, there's no good way to solve these problems. It's fine to become a Soul Contract Master directly? Although it's only 1,000-year soul ring. I heard that a Soul Contract Master's soul ring can be upgraded. When it's upgraded to a 10,000-year soul ring, it won't be a loss. Zhang Lishuan's gaze landed on Wang Feng. Seeing how he smiled at the little girl without any scruples, she couldn't help but purse her lips, and a smile flashed across her eyes. "Why, you just graduated from the academy less than a year ago, and you don't even know what happened in the academy?" You wouldn't have asked such a question if you had asked a little. Situ Han was embarrassed. The Internal Affairs Office in the central city had many things to do, and there were all sorts of open and covert fights. How could they have the time to pay attention to other things? In this huge martial spirit city there were tens of millions of people. Who knew how many fights there would be every day? There were too many things that the Internal Affairs Office had to deal with. In addition, this was the #1 city in the Federation, and there were many strong people. Even if he was a genius who graduated from the Shrek Academy, he still had to be careful. Zhang Lishuan looked at Situ Han's expression. She naturally knew the difficulties this junior brother of hers was in, and couldn't help but shake her head. The surrounding spectators sighed. The middle-aged man's voice wasn't loud, but the soul power of everyone present was very high. Naturally, they could hear him clearly. Wang Feng didn't stay for long after he learned about what had happened. After bidding farewell to the two of them, he returned to Zhang Lishuan's side. He had time to sigh with emotion. The middle-aged man was called Kong Linghai. This situation wasn't considered very special. However, it was Wang Feng's wish to see the effects of a soul contract master. Oh yes, I've heard about the demon cleansing herb. At this moment, Zhang Lishuan suddenly said, but I've never heard that the demon cleansing herb can affect a soul master's soul power. I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable. You even know about this? Knowledgeable? Wang Feng laughed softly. You really believe that? Zhang Lishuan and Situ Jing were stunned. Even Feng Qin and Feng Go, who had been watching, were slightly stunned. The demon cleansing herb doesn't have this ability, Wang Feng said slowly. Zhang Lishuan was shocked. You were tricking her just now? Wang Feng smiled but didn't say anything. He was tricking Ling Shuang just now. However, he succeeded because she was hiding something. Zhang Lishuan also understood this point. She couldn't help but feel lucky that Ling Shuang didn't use her martial soul just now. Ling Shuang came from the nascent shadow sect. She wasn't a simple person. Even Situ Han couldn't control her. She was also very familiar with the Federation's laws. Not only did she not admit it, she even made a false accusation. Situ Han was speechless. However, they didn't expect, there's something wrong with that woman. Wang Feng shook his head. In a certain room in the hotel, Ling Shuang looked at her reflection in the mirror. She released her martial soul. There were 2 purples and 4 blacks. Her soul power flowed in a strange rhythm. However, Ling Shuang's expression was a little ugly. Clearly, when he looked at himself in the mirror, there was no change in his martial soul or soul power. She knew that she had been tricked. Very good, very good. Chapter 1250. The Central City District was still very big. What Wang Feng had encountered was only a small part of the city. It wasn't a big deal. At least for Situ Han, who had lived in the Central City District for more than a year, it really wasn't a big deal. The Central City District is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Who knows how many big things will happen at the end of the year. Situ Han led the group to the registration area and couldn't help but sigh. Oh? From what I've seen along the way, the strength of the Soul Masters here is quite high, but most of them know their place and rarely cause trouble. I think the Federation has also set the rules, and the Central City District is the center of the Federation. Listening to little brother's tone, what happened just now isn't a big deal. Feng Qin smiled slightly. Although he and Feng Go were both great sages, they weren't arrogant when they entered the human city. Instead, they were somewhat approachable. They didn't cause trouble. It was more like they were looking at the world from a bystander's point of view. It had to be said that the powerhouses nurtured by the land of inheritance were aloof from worldly affairs and didn't come out. They had their own temperament. If there are battles, there will naturally be bigger things. Wang Feng looked at the martial spirit palace in the distance. This palace was grand and majestic. Its entire body was like crystal jade, shining with golden light and majestic aura. Even from afar, one could feel the majesty of this palace. An invisible aura that had experienced tens of thousands of years of wind and frost assaulted one's face. It made one feel awe and reverence at the same time. The big things that Sidhu Han was referring to were naturally related to the martial spirit palace. Orders, rules, and information were all transmitted by the martial spirit palace to the 3 political districts. Naturally, there were also all kinds of battles. Humans were always inseparable from battles, whether it was external or internal. For small battles, such as the situation just now, the most serious consequence was nothing more than the death of the Amora's beast. The life of a single soul beast wasn't the only thing at stake in such a huge battle. Various professions, families, sects, and so on would all be involved. Sidhu Han smiled and said, "That's true. The battles in the central city district are mainly those above, like the situation just now. It seems to be a coincidence, but in fact, it's quite complicated." Halfway through his words, he didn't dare to say more and changed the topic. "Do you know the origin of the Shadow Source sect?" Sidhu Han looked at them. Zhang Lishuan pondered for a moment, as if she had some guesses. However, the Shrek Academy wasn't located in one of the 3 political districts, and the Shrek City was a neutral party. Therefore, they didn't know much about the mysterious sect in the Star Luo political district. He only knew that this sect was very powerful and wealthy. It seemed that they accepted all kinds of missions. Wang Feng said coolly, "That's not hard to guess. When the woman was talking just now, she didn't seem to care about the life of the soul beasts at all. He didn't even care about the laws of the Federation. His attitude towards soul beasts was different from that of most soul masters. It was as if he often interacted with soul beasts. I even know that the demon-dissolving herb can cause soul beasts to mutate. Only those who specialize in the study of soul beasts would know this much. This means that the Shadow Source sect must have a close relationship with soul beasts." Wang Feng paused, retracted his gaze from afar, and continued, "Secondly, her 2 servants were ruthless. One of their attacks was aimed at the Amora's Achilles heel. It was as if they knew the Achilles heel very well, and could kill and subdue it in one move. Or rather, I don't know how many of these soul beasts they've killed." Zhang Lishuan was slightly shocked when she heard this. "My guess is that the Shadow Source sect is in the business of helping people kill soul beasts and obtain soul rings. Apart from that, the woman had a total of 5 soul bones. A soul emperor can almost have a set of soul bones. Although most of them are 10,000 years old, it's still incredible. Normal sects don't have so many soul bones." Wang Feng shook his head. There were no coincidences in this world. Leng Shuang couldn't have attacked her just because an Amoras had attacked her. "Do you know about the Shadow Source sect?" Sidhu Han was stunned for a long time after hearing this. He thought that Wang Feng knew about the Shadow Source sect. But thinking about it, if the Shadow Source sect didn't have any connections, very few people would know about them. He had also found out by chance that the Shadow Source sect was in the business of soul beasts. However, he had some guesses about the specific situation, but he wasn't sure. At this moment, after hearing Wang Feng's concise and comprehensive words, his mind was suddenly shocked. Helping people kill soul beasts and obtain soul rings? Zhang Lishuan was stunned. There's such a thing? She came from the orthodox Shrek Academy, and the academy believed in one's own strength. Soul rings had to be obtained by oneself. This was the first time she had heard of such a thing. Wang Feng laughed coldly. If there's a demand, there will naturally be a market. It was a very simple logic. Now, soul masters' physiques were improving, and their strength was increasing. The maximum age of soul rings had increased from a few hundred years to a few thousand years. However, very few people were able to hunt a soul beast of this age. Most soul masters relied on their teachers or formed teams with others of the same level to kill soul beasts after entering the academy. This method couldn't satisfy soul masters who were getting stronger. Naturally, there would be a demand. Wang Feng remembered that he had encountered a similar situation in the past. Now that such a special sect had appeared, it was normal for them to specialize in this line of work. Does this mean that the lady just now did it on purpose? Zhang Lishuan's mind suddenly lit up, and she understood what was going on. Of course it was on purpose. The reason was very simple. Benefits. Wang Feng shook his head. Once soul contract masters appeared, it meant that this demand would disappear. Once the demand disappeared, the market for helping others kill soul beasts to obtain soul rings would disappear. The Shadow Source sect had been doing this for countless years. Once this market disappeared, naturally, they didn't want soul contract masters to appear in this world. Otherwise, how could they have a place to live? This is the Central City District. If we continue with the situation just now and blow things up, we'll be in big trouble. If this matter escalates, the Martial Soul Palace will definitely take it seriously. These soul contract beasts will still be aggressive towards humans, and it will definitely have a negative impact on soul contract masters. Sidu Han looked deeply at Wang Feng. He didn't expect this man to be able to deduce such a conclusion from the confrontation just now. He even sniffed out the Shadow Source sect. It would be fine if he knew about the Shadow Source sect. If he didn't, it would be too scary. Wang Feng pondered for a moment and said, "The competition is approaching, and various factions will gather. If something happens at this juncture, it will definitely attract attention. Ling Shuang might make a move next. More accurately speaking, the Shadow Source sect, that bunch of father and daughter, and that Amora's beast might cause problems." Just as he finished speaking, Zhang Lishuan said, "Junior brother Han, can you send someone to watch over that group of father and daughter?" Sidu Han didn't say anything. However, Wang Feng shook his head and said, "It's not very meaningful. That pair of father and daughter aren't the only soul contract masters in the Central City District. Although there are very few soul contract masters now, there will always be one in a few thousand people. As long as there are soul contract masters, they can use them to make a fuss, especially during the competition." For some reason, Sidu Han felt a chill down his spine when he heard this. Wang Feng had thought that the appearance of soul contract masters would change the situation, and they would also be targeted. One had to know that the appearance of soul contract masters was good for most soul masters and the current situation of the continent. However, it would definitely destroy the interests of some people. This was inevitable. Therefore, he wasn't surprised by the Shadow Source sect's situation. In fact, soul beasts had existed for countless years. Apart from soul rings and soul bones, they were already closely connected to humans. Of course, this wasn't a good thing. This connection was filled with blood. It was a connection of interest. Once it was cut open and damaged the interests of some factions, they would naturally be targeted. The Shadow Source sect was only the first sect to reveal such a thing. It was just the tip of the iceberg. Who knew how many treacherous undercurrents there would be in this competition? Wang Fengxin sighed softly. How could a society, a federal government that had been developed for tens of thousands of years, be changed so easily? Fortunately, there was someone. A woman appeared in Wang Feng's mind. P.S. I've been tired of writing recently. I don't know why. I'm not stuck. I can write 10,000 words a day, but I'm dragging my feet and squeezing out 1,000 words. I've thought of an excuse for a long time, but I don't know what to do. I've become lazy. The key is that I know I've become lazy, but I don't know what to do. Chapter 1251. The registration process for the Peak Group competition wasn't complicated, but it definitely wasn't simple. With Shiyu's invitation and token, Wang Feng saved a lot of trouble. For example, The most basic part of the registration process was the soul power test. Normally, if one's soul power didn't reach rank 70, they wouldn't be able to pass. They didn't even have the qualifications to register. But the Federation had been developing for so long, and the competition had been held countless times. Naturally, there were ways to deal with those who had low soul power but could challenge those who were more than 10 ranks above them. As for why the threshold for the peak group competition was set at rank 70, the reason was simple. Rank 70 was the dividing line for soul masters. 4 words: martial soul true body. A soul master with a martial soul true body would be far stronger than other soul masters. Many soul masters, such as rank 30, could challenge rank 40 or even rank 50 soul masters because of their martial soul, soul ring, soul bone, and other factors. In the past 10,000 years, it wasn't considered a rare thing. But if a rank 60 soul master wanted to challenge a rank 70 soul master, it would be rare. The threshold was high, but there were also many soul masters who didn't reach the threshold and had strength beyond rank 70. Such a situation happened when the peak group competition was first held. In order to deal with this situation, the Federation would give these special powerhouses a second test. Basic strength test. The test method was very simple. The Federation's inspection department would send 3 titled Douluo to personally conduct a simple strength test. Out of the 3, any 2 of them could pass. It could be said that soul masters below rank 70, who wanted to participate in the peak group competition, had always been a thankless task. After all, it was the peak group competition. The word peak wasn't called for nothing. Usually, after these 2 tests, there wouldn't be any more. It seemed to be very relaxed. Wang Feng had a special token and invitation. Like Feng Qin and Feng Go, he was a special person. Naturally, he didn't need to pass these 2 tests. After registering, he only needed to wait for the competition to start. The opening of the peak group competition was at the same time as the youth group competition. The youth group competition was more complicated. It was divided into competition zones. Usually, it would start a few months in advance until the 3 political zones and more than 10 small competition zones were finished. A total of nearly 20 teams would enter the central city of Martial Spirit City and the Hongyu Soul Fighting Arena for the finals. The Hongyu Soul Fighting Arena was the venue for this competition. Although it was called an arena, it was more like an extremely large plaza. Just the surface area alone was more than 200,000 square meters, enough to accommodate more than 100,000 people. It was a huge building in the central city. It was also the largest soul arena in Martial Spirit City. Wang Feng found this interesting. Although the world had changed over the years, the Great Soul Arena had never disappeared. This was a place where soul masters fought at their limits, and it was as if it would never disappear. In fact, while this arena seemed very large, it was still not enough space for high-level soul masters to fight. This was especially true for battles between titled Douluo. This was because no arena could withstand a battle of this level. When the Pinnacle Group was first held, this was a difficult problem for boss. Furthermore, when titled Douluo fought, not only would they create a huge commotion, but they would also be extremely destructive. The difficulty in solving this problem caused many people to have headaches when the peak group competition was held. There was even a time when a Douluo Heavenly King from the Martial Spirit Palace proposed to hold a tournament on the surface of the sea to solve this problem. This was because no matter how much damage was done on the surface of the sea, it would not cause any harm to the land. After communicating with the Sea God's Island, they really held a few tournaments on a lone island on the surface of the sea. At that time, the Pinnacle Group competition had just been established. However, as time passed, many soul masters realized that holding a tournament on the surface of the sea was disadvantageous to many soul masters. Their innate abilities would be reduced by a few levels, and it was too unfair. After many twists and turns, they returned to land. The venues of the tournament also changed time and time again. Some were on cliffs, some were in valleys, some were on the raging Dragon River, some were in midair, and so on. However, no matter where it was, there would be all kinds of problems. This was until Soul Tool technology came from the Sun-Moon Empire. Then, the Shi Douluo appeared valiantly and became the first Class 9 Soul Engineer in the Federation. He was able to create a Class 9 Soul Tool. This Hongyu Soul Arena was an extremely large Class 9 Soul Tool that was personally created by the Shi Douluo. It could completely withstand the shockwaves caused by a titled Douluo's battle. Unless one's abilities surpassed the Shi Douluo's, it would be difficult to damage the Hongyu Soul Arena. When Wang Feng saw the Hongyu Soul Arena, he could not help but laugh. The appearance of this martial soul arena was very similar to the Shi Douluo's Yin-Yang origin martial soul. It was in its original form. It was half black and half white, with a yin-yang fish eye on each side. It was 8 meters tall and had a total area of more than 1,000,000 square meters. Just the diameter alone was more than 1,000 meters. It was hollow, and there were tens of thousands of spectators stands around. Unlike the 10,000-year competition, there were very few spectators in the finals. The changes over the past 10,000 years made Soul Masters realize that one's abilities were linked to one's reputation. The more spectators there were, the more beneficial it would be for a Soul Master. Especially after the Federation was established, such competitions were never taboo. No matter what kind of competition it was, it would be presented to many spectators. This was also one of the reasons why there were more and more Soul Masters in the Federation. After all, no matter how impressive a person was, what was the use if no one saw him? What was a powerful Soul Master like when he was not famous and his abilities were not limited? What if he showed the Sun-Moon Empire the strength of the Federation? What if he showed the life forms hidden in the darkness that feared the Federation? It could be said that the establishment of the Pinnacle Group competition had many symbolic meanings. It wasn't just a competition. I saw that there were many people who signed up, but after counting, I realized that there weren't as many as I thought. Is it because we're late? Most people have already signed up? Feng Qin said with a smile. After walking out of the Grand Feather Arena, Situ Han arranged for the 3 of them to stay at the Grand Feather Pavilion, the largest hotel in the Central City District. That's not it. Situ Han's expression was slightly solemn. Senior, although there are many high-level Soul Masters in our Federation, only 1 in 7 of them have the guts to participate in the competition. Excluding those who have matters to attend to, most of the Soul Masters above rank 70 came to participate in the Pinnacle Group competition to accumulate experience and broaden their horizons. This is because everyone knows that the titled Douluo will definitely fight for first place in the Pinnacle Group competition. So, in fact, there are more spectators than participants for high-level Soul Masters. In addition, the Pinnacle Group competition is often bloody. The relatively reserved youth group competition is relatively cruel. Many high-level Soul Masters come not to participate, but to watch. Bloody? Feng Gu was stunned. High-level Soul Masters have cultivated for dozens of years to achieve this kind of achievement. It shouldn't be good except for human lives, right? Is your human federation so powerful that you don't even care about the lives of high-level Soul Masters? Every high-grade Soul Master needed a very long time to be nurtured. The fastest would take at least 10 years. If they died in a competition, who knew how much of a loss it would be? Feng Gu felt that he didn't understand. As someone from the Hidden Wind Cliff, every death was a great loss to them. Even if there were occasional fights within the Hidden Wind Cliff, they wouldn't allow deaths. Wang Feng understood a little. A battle between high-level Soul Masters was different from a battle between mid-level and low-level Soul Masters. In a battle between mid-level and low-level Soul Masters, no matter how fierce it was, as long as there weren't any soul tools like the Tang Sect's hidden weapons that were difficult to defend against. At most, the Soul Masters would be crippled. However, a battle between high-level Soul Masters could easily be earth-shattering. How could there be no death? Unless both sides held back most of their strength. But if they held back most of their strength, why would they participate in the Pinnacle Group? Wouldn't that be the same as the Youth Group? In the Pinnacle Group competition, even if they brought out 100% of their strength, they would have to bring out at least 99% of their strength. If they were careless, it was very normal for someone to die. It's not that they don't care, it's that they can't. Sidhu Han shook his head. Sometimes, when both sides fight until their eyes are red and there's a fight for their lives, it's impossible to stop easily. Moreover, the Pinnacle Group is different from the Youth Group. The Youth Group can't have deaths because the Soul Masters in the Youth Group are the future hope of the Federation. However, the participants in the Pinnacle Group have experienced a lot. If they don't have the awareness of death, how can they bear the heavy responsibility of facing stronger challenges in the future? Sidhu Han paused. Especially in the current situation. Feng Gu was speechless. Because of this, although there are many people participating in the Pinnacle Group competition, compared to the entire Federation's high-level Soul Masters, there are still very few. After all, to many people, their lives are the most important. Sidhu Han sighed. This year's competition is already the most. It's estimated that there are at least 10,000 high-level Soul Masters participating. The rewards are very generous, but it's also very cruel. Do you know why the Youth Group competition is held at the same time as the Pinnacle Group competition? It's because the Federation wants to let these young people know that in the world of high-level Soul Masters, the battles are very cruel. It's also to let these young people be prepared for the future. It's to let them know that in this world, other than the evil soul beasts, we are also dangerous. Sidhu Han's words made Feng Qin and Feng Gu feel very emotional. Seeing that the two seniors were very emotional, Sidhu Han smiled and said, "Actually, it's still okay. Most of the Soul Masters won't really kill. The death rate of the competition has always been around 2%. It's not very high. 5%. This meant that out of 10,000 people participating in the competition, at least 200 would die. It wasn't considered a lot." However, when Wang Feng heard these words and understood, there were some changes in his heart. Moreover, the overall competition schedule is very short. Even if there are 10,000 people, the competition will only last for a month at most. The winner will be determined in one round and they will be directly eliminated. Usually, there will be a staggered competition. Apart from the rest time, the opponents will be randomly assigned. There won't be a bye. Sidhu Han could be said to be very clear about the competition. Usually, the duration of one round is also very short. This is because most of the participants will be eliminated in the first few days. Coupled with the gap in strength, many Soul Masters who want to take advantage of the loopholes will be eliminated directly. However, it's still exciting. Sidhu Han's eyes were filled with excitement. When you see thousands of Soul Masters fighting at the same time, whether they're flying in the sky or sitting on the stage, the scene will be extremely shocking. I was fortunate enough to watch the tournament from 20 years ago, and it was truly brilliant beyond compare. The sky was filled with bright and colorful clouds, and countless soul skills were unleashed. The shock it gave people was indescribable. Wang Fengxin smiled. The Pinnacle Group competition was intentionally or unintentionally broadcasting the battle scenes of Soul Masters. Obviously, it was to remind Soul Masters and broaden their knowledge. In case of war or danger, they could quickly gather the Soul Masters of the Federation and form an effective organization to fight. It wasn't ignorant. Under the seemingly simple competition format, there were many hidden meanings. After some understanding, Wang Feng couldn't say that the competition format wasn't bad. It was simple, direct, and effective. It was also filled with blood, cruelty, and had a hidden meaning of war. In the past, when it was still considered peaceful, the competition format was actually more detailed. However, after the Sun-Moon Empire appeared, especially after the appearance of the evil soul beast, the competition format was changed again and again, resulting in the current Pinnacle Group competition. After chatting for a while, Wang Feng was led by Situ Han to a guest room in the Grand Feather Pavilion. The interior wasn't luxurious, but it wasn't bad either. The room was 70 to 80 square meters. It was enough for 3 people, let alone one. There were also some small and exquisite soul tools in the room. The simplest one, such as the rose-like chandelier, was a soul tool. As for activating the room, one only needed to inject soul power into the room card. It was convenient and simple. Wang Feng gazed at the city from the window. This city represented the forefront of the Federation. Although it was less than half a day, it made Wang Feng sigh. There were still 2 to 3 days before the opening ceremony. The competition would officially begin when the teams from the various divisions of the youth group arrived at Martial Spirit City. When the time came, Huoyu Hao and the others would naturally come. As a team sent by the Shrek Academy and led by Ma Xiaotao, they would definitely stand out in the regional competition. Thinking back on what they had encountered since they left the extreme north, Wang Feng gazed at the night sky, which was gradually darkening. He only felt that there was an undercurrent surging. The starry night sky was like a curtain that was decorated with diamonds. He didn't know what kind of terrifying monsters would appear once the curtain was lifted. Ferocious mouths were hidden deep within, as if they were extremely dangerous and swallowed everything. Wang Feng didn't rest. He only sat quietly and observed. From time to time, he would communicate with the little Kuan shark. Halfway through the night, someone knocked on the door. It was urgent. Wang Feng, what you were worried about seems to have happened. Zhang Lishuan's anxious voice sounded from outside the door. Wang Feng opened the door and saw Zhang Lishuan's beautiful face. She was a little anxious and shocked. Before Zhang Lishuan could reply, Wang Fengxin's heart moved. He slowly said, "Did something happen to that father and daughter?" Zhang Lishuan nodded and took a deep breath. "They're dead." Chapter 1252. In a medium-sized hotel not far from the Grand Feather Pavilion. Inside one of the rooms, the night was quiet, and there were many soul masters from the Department of Internal Affairs standing guard at the entrance of the hotel. Rows of warning signs with the words "No Entry" written on them were erected all around. The hotel was brightly lit, and there were many soul masters who had been startled awake. They were looking at one of the rooms on the 4th floor. What's going on in the middle of the night? From the looks of it, a soul master must have died, right? It seems like a soul sage died in this hotel. Can you guess how he died? A soul sage? A soul sage in a hotel like this? Was he murdered? How can it be so easy? That's a soul sage we're talking about. I heard that he was killed by his soul-carving beast. I have a friend who lives in a room nearby. He heard the sound of a soul-carving beast fighting inside. Soul-carving beast? Is that the cultivation method that's popular in the Shrek Academy? TSK, a soul sage can be killed by his own soul-carving beast? Indeed. It's a sorcery. When Wang Feng and Zhang Lishuan arrived, they could hear the discussions going on all around them. It was very difficult to kill a soul sage without anyone noticing. Wang Fengxin's heart turned cold when he heard that the soul sage was killed by a soul-carving beast. "There's something wrong with this," Zhang Lishuan whispered. "A soul-carving beast couldn't attack its partner who had a soul contract with it. To put it simply, he couldn't make a move. He couldn't launch any attack. It was the same for humans. They couldn't attack the soul-carving beast either. This was because signing a soul contract meant that both parties had acknowledged each other. There was no such thing as force. Even if they threatened the soul-carving beast, they couldn't sign a soul contract with it." Wang Feng didn't say anything. He followed Zhang Lishuan to a room on the 4th floor of the hotel. As soon as he walked in, he saw a soul cultivator walk out with a pale face, muttering to himself, "That's right." He was muttering, "Impossible, unless it's a heavenly king." As he muttered, the soul master sighed and walked out. Wang Feng glanced at him before entering the room with Zhang Lishuan. The room was in shambles. Whether it was the walls or the furniture inside, there were signs of a fight. Moreover, the claw marks were clearly left behind by the Amoras. Inside the room, there were a few people from the Department of Internal Affairs who were in different attire. They were trying to preserve the evidence of the crime scene. Sidhu Han commanded from the center. The other members of the Department of Internal Affairs released their martial souls to check their surroundings. Wang Feng glanced at them. Their martial spirits were the Nighthawk, the Ink Hound, and a unique mirror martial spirit. These martial souls weren't very powerful, but they were very functional. A martial soul like the Nighthawk could detect any minute details in the night, and it possessed powerful dynamic vision. No matter where in the room, no detail could escape. Coupled with the assistance of a soul skill, people with such a martial soul were usually used for combat analysis, on-site analysis, and so on. The Ink Hound martial spirit could be used to detect any situation that had already occurred. It could detect the faint soul power fluctuations and special auras that were left behind after a few hours or even a few days. From this information, it could analyze the specific situation. The lens martial spirit should be a special magnifying glass that could detect the most minute parts of the scene and analyze it. Through a reasonable analysis of these three, it could usually deduce what had happened at the scene. These people from the Department of Internal Affairs didn't carry any special equipment with them. They only had a few soul tools as support. They were completely relying on the power of their martial souls to investigate the scene. From this, it could be seen that there was a reason why the Federation didn't develop soul tool technology. When most situations in society could be solved with martial souls, no one would think of using soul tools. At the same time, Wang Feng also saw the middle-aged man on the bed in the distance, who was still emitting strong soul power fluctuations. However, there was a layer of white cloth covering him now, indicating that he was already dead. Not far away, there was the corpse of the Amoras. It was also lying in a pool of blood. The only one who wasn't dead was the little girl. There was only fear in her eyes, and she was stupefied. Her petite body was trembling. Fortunately, there were no wounds on her body. However, her pale face and lifeless eyes indicated that her wounds weren't on her body. They were in her heart. Wang Feng closed his eyes. Zhang Lishuan, who was beside him, clenched her fists. She had gone to find Wang Feng when Sidhu Han gave her the news. She didn't know what had happened at the scene. When she saw this scene, Zhang Lishuan felt a chill down her spine, and she was furious. It was done by the Shadow Source sect. That Amuras can't possibly kill him, and it doesn't have the power to do so. Zhang Lishuan's voice trembled slightly, revealing the turmoil in her heart. Wang Feng scanned his surroundings and closed his eyes slightly, as if he could sense everything that had happened. No, Wang Feng shook his head. He was killed by that Amoras. Zhang Lishuan looked at him in astonishment when she heard this. How is this possible? She had become a soul contract master, and naturally knew the power of a soul contract. If Zhang Lishuan dared to use a soul skill against her companion, the demon illusion beast, her soul power would immediately disappear due to the connection between them. She wouldn't be able to use any soul skills at all. At this moment, Sidhu Han and the three soul masters seemed to be discussing something. After a while, he walked over and said slowly, "They told me everything. They told me about what happened in this room. To put it simply, the Amoras went berserk again. The reason for it going berserk should be similar to the previous one. There's also a special element in its blood. Apart from that, the Amoras didn't attack that man, but his daughter. That man was injured by the Amoras when he tried to save his daughter." As he said this, Sidhu Han sighed. Zhang Lishuan was stunned. However, the man couldn't do anything. Sidu Han's next sentence made Zhang Lishuan's heart skip a beat. He used the loophole in the rules of the life-soul contract. Wang Feng's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. Zhang Lishuan was also enlightened. In the life-soul contract, soul-bound beasts and soul masters couldn't attack each other. However, the berserk Amoras began to attack another person. An attack that had already been formed couldn't be dispelled, and could only be resisted. Furthermore, that little girl was the man's daughter, and he couldn't just watch. On the other hand, the middle-aged man couldn't retaliate against the Amoras because of the life-soul contract. A soul sage who couldn't retaliate could only defend himself against the attack of a 1,000-year soul beast. But that alone won't be enough to kill a soul sage. Zhang Lishuan looked around and asked, "A soul sage only needs to defend, and a 1,000-year soul beast can't kill him even if it keeps attacking. Could there be other soul masters in the room?" Chapter 1253. There was no third party in the room, Sidu Han said softly. It's just that the middle-aged man didn't defend himself. How is that possible? Zhang Lishuan felt that it was too strange. So strange? There's nothing strange about it. Wang Feng glanced at the little girl. Because the one who gave the middle-aged man a fatal blow was his daughter. The moment he finished speaking, both of them were stunned. Zhang Lishuan felt that it was impossible and was shocked by the absurdity of this news. However, Sidu Han was shocked. How did this person know? They had 3 soul masters who were good at investigation. They simulated the scene through the scene, artifacts, and soul power undulations before deducing the result. That's right, Sidu Han said slowly. His daughter was hit by a special soul skill. It's a spiritual type soul skill that controls one's mind. It's hard to detect. Our preliminary conclusion is that it should be the strength of a soul sage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have failed to discover that his daughter was hit by a soul skill. When the man blocked in front of his daughter stabbed him with a dagger. In his shock, he couldn't defend himself against the attack of the soul-bonding beast and was killed by it. This kind of soul skill is very rare. If I'm not wrong, it should be the work of an evil soul master. That's why this happened. How sinister! Evil soul master. Zhang Lishuan's pupils shrank. Evil soul masters had gradually disappeared from the Federation over the years. It was very rare. They didn't cause any trouble, but 1 or 2 would appear occasionally. Now that the tournament was about to begin, it wasn't surprising that evil soul masters would appear. She just didn't expect them to appear here. Furthermore, the nascent shadow sect is colluding with evil soul masters? Zhang Lishuan's expression was cold. I'm not sure, Sidu Han shook his head. Although we've analyzed the situation at the scene, we're not sure. Although we've analyzed the situation, it's hard to say exactly what happened. There are many people in the hotel. When the man left, our Department of Internal Affairs sent people to observe him secretly to prevent any accidents from happening. However, he recalled the Amora's beast and only let it out when he entered the hotel room. Theoretically, it's impossible for him to come into contact with the demon cleansing herb. It must be related to the nascent shadow sect. Zhang Lishuan clenched her hands. For something like this to happen at this time, a soul master was killed by his own soul-bonding beast? She didn't even have to think to know that this was a flaw that couldn't be removed. One had to know that humans were already extremely wary of soul beasts. If such a situation were to happen, would they still be killed by the soul contractor? Who would choose to become a soul renderer? Such a dangerous profession. Even if the Federation didn't issue any laws, countless soul masters would automatically reject this profession, and some would even detest it and stay away from it. Wang Feng did not expect this to happen either. Even though he had already said that the father and daughter duo could be in danger, he didn't expect it to happen so quickly. He originally thought that those people would tamper with the competition. However, he did not expect that after what happened during the day, such a thing would happen at night. We can keep this a secret for now. Sidhu Han hesitated for a moment before saying, "It's obvious that someone has ulterior motives and wants to recruit a black contracted soul master. We can't hide it." Wang Feng walked to the little girl's side and said in a low voice, "Once something like this happens, it will spread to every corner of the martial spirit city. The more he tried to hide it, the more guilty he felt. There's no point in hiding it." As soon as Wang Feng approached, the little girl suddenly crawled back, as if Wang Feng was some kind of terrifying monster. It was obvious that his soul had suffered a heavy blow. Wang Feng wanted to say something but stopped. Looking at the little girl, his eyes flickered. He looked at the middle-aged man on the bed again, although his eyes were already closed. Although his eyes were closed, there was still an expression of disbelief on his face. Sidhu Han walked over and sighed. The soul skill this little girl received was a rare and powerful spiritual soul skill. Her soul and spirit were already damaged, and the evil soul master who controlled her mind obviously did not intend to let her go. According to our analysis, she should have died immediately after the incident, but she was controlled by that evil soul master and committed suicide. She wouldn't have revealed any flaws. But due to her mind being controlled, she used a dagger to pierce her father's body, causing her soul to resist violently. Under such a powerful soul resistance, although her father was injured, she was barely able to break free from that soul skill. It's just that her soul was damaged and she will become a mental patient, never to recover. Coupled with the damage to her father, the damage to her soul was even greater. I just invited a spiritual type soul sage and he said that he couldn't cure it, unless the star spirit Heavenly King makes a move. Or there might be a possibility. Otherwise, this matter can still be solved. This kind of deduction was reasonable. The soul master who walked out just now should be a spiritual type soul master. By combing the little girl's mind, he could deduce this result, but he couldn't cure it. It could only mean that this evil soul master was stronger than the other party. Wang Feng was silent and only looked at the little girl. This little girl was the key. Whether it was the Shadow Source sect or the evil soul masters, they just wanted to pour water on the soul master. If this little girl died, this matter would really be settled. No matter how they explained, it would be useless. No one would believe it. But if this little girl was still alive, with her identity, she would announce the inside story. This thick and black pot of water that couldn't be washed away would not be poured on the soul master. Unfortunately, even if the little girl didn't die, her soul was damaged and she sealed her consciousness, becoming a mentally ill person. Who would believe the words of a mentally ill person with a damaged soul? The star spirit Heavenly King that Sidhu Han mentioned was one of the 12 Heavenly Kings of the Martial Soul Palace. He was the only spiritual type titled Douluo in the world. Star Spirit Heavenly King? Zhang Lishuan's eyes lit up. She immediately realized the importance of the little girl. I'll immediately report to Elder Mu and Elder Xian and ask them to come forward and ask the Star Spirit Heavenly King to heal her. A Heavenly King was naturally not someone that anyone could invite. Wang Feng opened his mouth and was about to speak. At this moment, a figure suddenly floated over from afar. That figure seemed to be riding on the starlight. Her figure was ethereal, like a fairy that walked down from the stars. Her temperament was clear, and she emitted a soul-stirring cold radiance. "No need, I'm already here." Before the figure landed, a faint voice sounded. Hearing this voice, everyone in the room immediately bowed and said respectfully, "Greetings, Star Spirit Heavenly King, Douluo Heavenly King." He represented the top 12 soul masters in the Federation and was also a supreme figure that stood out from the 3 political districts. Other than his strength, his intelligence, background, ability, and talent were all 1 in a million. Chapter 1254. There were many titled Douluo in the Federation. There were more than 3-digit. But there were only 12 heavenly kings in the past 10,000 years. From the beginning to the end, there were only 12. The position of heavenly king was a symbol of strength and power. Becoming a titled Douluo was already extraordinary. If one wanted to find the 12 heavenly kings to lead the Federation forward, they would be able to do so. Naturally, it wouldn't be simple. The sacred and revered martial spirit palace was the goal of many soul masters. The 12 heavenly kings in the martial spirit palace were the ambition of many titled Dalu. It was Wang Feng's first time seeing the heavenly kings in the martial spirit palace. Of course, Elder Xian of the Shrek Academy was an honorary heavenly king. But he didn't have any power to interfere with the 3 political regions. It was the same for Qing Qing's position as Heavenly King Nine Phoenix. It only represented the friendship between humans and the extreme north. Elder Xian's authority as an honorary Heavenly King was only in Shrek City. Therefore, Shrek City was considered a very special place in the Federation. This Heavenly King's Star Spirit's soul power was at rank 97. It was very difficult for a spiritual-type soul master to reach rank 97, even for a rank 20 innate full soul power. What they needed were resources and opportunities. It was hard to tell her age. She looked very young and beautiful. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and her eyes were cold. She was different from Shiyu's indifference and calmness, as if everything was under her control. This Heavenly King Star Spirit's coldness wasn't a coldness that kept people at a distance. Instead, it was a coldness that was noble and otherworldly, like an immortal in the moon and a spirit in the stars. In this aspect, she was similar to Zhang Lishuan. It wasn't Zhang Lishuan's first time seeing this Heavenly King Star Spirit. Every year, the 12 Heavenly Kings of Douluo would attend the competition. To many soul masters, they would remember the appearance of the 12 heavenly kings clearly. However, she was a little shocked. How noble was the heavenly king's star spirit! He dealt with major matters that concerned the direction of the Federation. The death of a soul sage was a big deal in the eyes of ordinary soul masters. But to them, who were heavenly kings, it wasn't a big deal. There were people to deal with it. Otherwise, if a heavenly king was alarmed for such a matter, the departments of the Federation wouldn't be able to work. Just leave it all to Douluo Heavenly King. He only said that these matters would be reported to the Department of Internal Affairs as soon as possible after Sidu Han summarized them. After that, it would be quickly reported to the Martial Spirit Palace. Naturally, Heavenly King Douluo would also know about this. Of course, if this soul sage had a powerful background, Heavenly King Douluo might step in. However, it was clear that this man was not special. Otherwise, Heavenly King Douluo would only wait for the Department of Internal Affairs to deal with these matters, even if they had already reached his ears. They didn't know how to, nor did they have the time to care about these things. Unless, has the Martial Spirit Palace already paid attention to soul renters? Zhang Lishuan thought to herself. Sir, why are you here? Situ Han asked in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. The soul masters of any department in the Federation would only have respect and reverence for the Douluo Heavenly King. As a level 1 patrol officer, he naturally wouldn't be scared to the point of pissing his pants when he saw the Heavenly King. Nor would he be so scared that he couldn't even speak a complete sentence. If that was the case, then he wouldn't need to be a first-grade patrol officer anymore. Furthermore, he was a first-grade patrol officer in the Central District of Martial Spirit City. The Star Spirit Heavenly King did not reply, but his gaze first landed on Wang Feng, and his gaze became serious. Wang Feng looked at her and nodded slightly. Just like Shiyu. The 12 Heavenly Kings of Douluo all had extraordinary backgrounds. Each of the 3 political districts had 4 positions. Naturally, they represented the hidden powerful forces behind the 3 political districts. Otherwise, it would be impossible to sit in this position with just one's own strength. And this star spirit heavenly king happened to come from the star Luo political district. I already knew about this on the way here. The star spirit heavenly king's gaze landed on the little girl in the distance and said indifferently, "It's more important to treat this little girl first. You don't have to care about the rest. Siduhan, you have to deal with tonight's matter properly." Siduhan hurriedly nodded. The words "deal with it properly" already proved that the martial spirit palace was obviously on the side of the soul renter. Otherwise, this star spirit heavenly king wouldn't have appeared here. "We just found out about this less than an hour ago," Zhang Lishuan said in a low voice. "This star spirit heavenly king came here from the martial spirit palace." Sidu Han coughed softly. "A spirit heavenly king, and a rank 97 one at that. He wasn't simple. It was impossible for any movement in the central city to escape the senses of a spirit heavenly king." Wang Feng stood at the side and pondered for a moment. At this moment, the star spirit heavenly king walked in front of the little girl. The little girl revealed the same situation as before. She crawled back in fear. The star spirit heavenly king didn't continue forward. Instead, he stood where he was. Following that, one of her eyes suddenly burst out with a burst of starlight. At the same time, star-like lights rose from the back of the star spirit heavenly king. Martial spirit, star spirit eyes. The light behind him seemed to symbolize endless stars. It was more like a river of stars in the sky. For some reason, Wang Feng suddenly thought of standing in the room and looking at the night sky. He saw those bright diamond-like stars. It was actually very similar to the martial spirit that the star spirit heavenly king had revealed. Wang Feng had never seen such a martial spirit before. It was very strange. The spirit eyes were somewhat similar to Hui Yuhao's spirit eyes. Logically speaking, it should be a type of body soul. However, the sudden appearance of the light indicated that it was another type of martial soul. In other words, it was a true star martial spirit. But it wasn't twin martial spirits. It's a double-sided martial spirit, star spirit eyes. Zhang Lishuan seemed to see the doubt in Wang Feng's eyes. Simply put, it's a special martial spirit that you were born a few hundred years ago. It's a double-sided martial spirit. It's a powerful martial spirit that has mutated. Wang Feng was enlightened. A double-sided martial spirit, interesting. This martial spirit was obviously very rare. It was even rarer than twin martial spirit. It seemed like there was only a difference of one word, but the difference was like heaven and earth. It was similar to the Chaos Green Lotus. The Chaos Green Lotus currently had 7 forms. No matter which one it was, they were all very powerful. Speaking of which, it was a 7-faced martial spirit. This star spirit eyes was obviously not that powerful. It only had 2 simple forms. However, even if it only had 2 forms, its power was undeniable. The martial spirit was released, and the star spirit heavenly king's spirit eyes, which were shining with starlight, shot out a beam of light. The half-asleep stars flickered and were about to enter the little girl's eyes. In the blink of an eye, Wang Feng suddenly said, "Wait, don't save her first." His voice was sudden, and everyone in the room was stunned. This was because there was a faint bright sound in this voice that shook one's soul. The beam of light that shot out from the spirit eyes trembled slightly and shifted a few inches. The powerful spiritual undulations suddenly disappeared. It had been interrupted. Zhang Lishuan and Siduhan were stunned as they watched. The star spirit heavenly king turned around and frowned as he looked at Wang Feng. "What do you mean?" Chapter 1255. The channeling was interrupted. A rank 97 spiritual type, titled Douluo's channeling, was interrupted. Whether it was Zhang Lishuan or Siduhan, this was what shocked them. That voice just now contained a special spiritual influence that made his soul feel clear. It was one of the chaotic 8 notes, the word Ming. It was not considered an interruption, but it affected the spiritual undulations of the star spirit heavenly king. Otherwise, it was not enough to make the Star Spirit Heavenly King stop. Of course it means what it says, Wang Feng said. Zhang Lishuan and Sidu Han did not understand. If they did not save the little girl, were they going to let her be like this? Once the news spread, this soul contractor would not be able to establish himself in the world of soul masters. His reputation would plummet. On the other hand, the Star Spirit Heavenly King frowned as he looked at the little girl. He seemed to react and said, "You mean, there's a trap?" The Douluo Heavenly King had a high status. Besides their abilities, they were naturally very intelligent. She seemed to understand what Wang Feng meant. A trap? What trap? Even Sidu Han did not react. He could not be blamed. You said that this little girl's soul was controlled and she tried to assassinate her father. This caused her soul to resist intensely. She managed to get rid of the evil soul master's soul skill, but her soul was injured, so she became like this? Wang Feng looked at Sidu Han and said slowly, "That's right." Sidu Han nodded. According to our investigation and analysis, as well as the result of the spiritual type soul sage's investigation, this is indeed the case. Otherwise, this little girl would not have survived. Theoretically, it's possible. Wang Feng did not deny it. Any spiritual type soul skill involved the soul. This little girl was controlled and tried to assassinate her father. In the depths of her soul, she would naturally resist. This was not a problem. According to Wang Feng's spiritual analysis from his memories from his previous life, any spiritual type soul skill that controlled one's thoughts and actions were controlled by one's self. In other words, it was the actions that came from one's subconscious mind. However, such actions were rejected by the ego, the consciousness in charge of dealing with reality, and the superego, the consciousness controlled by one's personality. This would cause the soul to resist. In a world dominated by soul masters, there was no research on humans to this level. Maybe there was, but only part of it. In theory, it was because these theories were applicable to his previous life, but not necessarily to this world. This was because this was the world of soul masters, the world of martial souls. To put it simply, under normal circumstances that seemed to be the case. But thinking about it carefully, how could a little girl with no cultivation break free from the spiritual type soul skill of a soul sage? Either that, or this little girl had a heaven-defying talent, and her soul force was unprecedentedly powerful. For example, a transmigrator with the soul of an adult. It was a similar situation. Or the other party deliberately created this illusion to make Sidu Han and the others think so. Obviously, Wang Fengxin's inference was biased towards the latter. Then, based on this situation, he could make further inferences. Why did this evil soul master purposely create such an illusion instead of killing her directly? Wouldn't it be better to just kill her? Why leave such a flaw? Sidu Han and Zhang Lishuan understood what Wang Feng was trying to say. His entire body felt cold. You think that only the Star Spirit Heavenly King can save the little girl's condition. How could this evil soul master not have thought of that? Wang Feng shook his head. Scheming. That evil soul master's target is the Star Spirit Heavenly King. Sidu Han took a deep breath and turned to look at the little girl. Could it be that he left a trap in this little girl's soul? Once he wants to save the little girl, he will trigger the trap and cause unknown damage to the Star Spirit Heavenly King? But who can hurt the Star Spirit Heavenly King? Wang Fengxin said. How could it be impossible? According to Mu En and Xian Zi half a year ago, this Star Spirit Heavenly King's soul was severely injured because of the spiritual attack of the Soul Beast. At that time, it was the Star Spirit Heavenly King who saved Mu En's life. Of course, this kind of thing couldn't be publicized. Under such circumstances, it was hard to say if the Star Spirit Heavenly King would be injured if he fell into a trap. Sidu Han and Zhang Lishuan didn't know this. Hence, they didn't understand what Wang Feng was saying. The Star Spirit Heavenly King immediately figured it out when Wang Feng stopped him. The other party must have expected that the Star Spirit Heavenly King would appear to save the little girl. In other words, the other party should have a better understanding of the Federation's situation. Zhang Lishuan was in disbelief. In this murder, other than attacking the Soul Charmer, they were also plotting against the Star Spirit Heavenly King? Of course, all of this could be fake. The Star Spirit Heavenly King pondered for a few seconds and looked at the little girl. Speaking of which, was it worth taking such a risk for a little girl? Or rather, was it worth it for the Soul Charmer? Wang Feng saw through this and stopped the Star Spirit Heavenly King for this purpose. He knew that the Star Spirit Heavenly King's soul had been injured. Even if it had recovered, there must be a special trap in this little girl's soul. If the other party really dared to set up a trap, it meant that the Star Spirit Heavenly King would be severely injured again. There was another purpose. It's fine. I want to see which evil soul master has the ability to do so. The Star Spirit Heavenly King narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the little girl. Wang Feng opened his mouth and said, "Why don't I do it myself? I created this Soul Charmer. I will handle this matter personally." This was what he wanted to say just now. He just didn't expect the Star Spirit Heavenly King to come so quickly. Wang Feng guessed that Shiyu must have sent him. Otherwise, with the Star Spirit Heavenly King's status, he shouldn't have come. "You!" The Star Spirit Heavenly King was stunned for a second. "As far as I know, you are not a spiritual type soul master." It was impossible for a Heavenly King to not know anything about Wang Feng. It would be better to say that the moment Wang Feng stepped into Martial Spirit City, he was already known by the people of Martial Spirit Palace. Wang Feng smiled. "Those who can catch mice might not be cats." The Star Spirit Heavenly King. Zhang Lishuan chuckled softly. There weren't many people in the Federation who dared to compare the Star Spirit Heavenly King to a cat. The Star Spirit Heavenly King was silent for a few seconds and didn't care about Wang Feng's analogy. No. A few seconds later, the Star Spirit Heavenly King shook his head. "I was entrusted by someone. If it's true, you are much more dangerous than me." Speaking of which, the Star Spirit Heavenly King paused. Currently, there are no spiritual type soul masters on the continent with a higher level of soul power than me. Even evil soul masters are the same. The last sentence carried a strong sense of confidence. Chapter 1256. In fact, that was true. Since that was the case, Wang Feng didn't say anything else. If he forced himself to stand out, it would probably backfire. Furthermore, the Star Spirit King was already on his guard. Once he encountered a trap, he should be able to protect himself. Wang Feng was more interested in the identity of the evil soul master who was plotting against them. At this moment, the Star Spirit King released his Star Spirit Eyes Martial Soul. 9 soul rings flickered on his body. The light emitted by the stars was gentle and beautiful. It slowly emanated from the Star Spirit King's body and enveloped the little girl. In an instant, the little girl's expression slowly calmed down from fear and madness. Star Healing Spirit Light. The Star Spirit King's 6 soul rings suddenly flickered. Countless thumb-sized stars flew to the little girl's side like diamonds and spun around her, completely surrounding her head. Following that, a bolt of silver light shot out from the Star Spirit King's eyes and shone directly into the little girl's soul. Wang Feng watched quietly. The Star Spirit King's martial soul was much stronger than his Spirit Eyes martial soul. To be precise, they weren't on the same level. In fact, to be able to become a Douluo Heavenly King, it was definitely not simple. Just think about the hundreds of millions of people in the Federation. The moment the silver light entered the little girl's eyes, the little girl's soul began to tremble. The Star Spirit King entered the little girl's soul to repair it. An injury to the soul was not an ordinary injury. It was extremely difficult to treat. However, The moment the Star Spirit King's consciousness entered the little girl's soul, a pitch-black ghost shadow suddenly emerged from the little girl's soul. Soul demon? The Star Spirit King was stunned. His heart turned cold. There was actually the soul of a soul demon hidden in this little girl's soul. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through the Star Spirit King's mind. As the Star Spirit King, who had a soul connection with a soul demon and was heavily injured, he naturally knew how terrifying this monster was. However, he didn't expect the evil soul master to collude with the evil soul beast. But thinking about it, there didn't seem to be a problem. Although evil soul masters were so close and rare on the continent, they hadn't caused any trouble in the past 10,000 years. They were even suppressed by the Sun-Moon Empire. But even though it didn't cause any trouble, it didn't disappear. It was like a venomous snake hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Soul Demon, the Star Spirit Heavenly King's eyes shone brightly. His entire body glowed with silver light, making him look like a deity. She had been attacked by a soul demon and devoured a soul demon. She had formed a soul link with the soul demon and stolen a lot of information about the dark demon realm for the Federation. But at the same time, many secrets of the Federation had been learned by the soul demons. No wonder this evil soul master was able to scheme so deeply. They knew so much about the Federation, yet they still dared to scheme against her. Otherwise, how could an evil soul master, who had been in decline for 10,000 years, have the guts and strength to scheme against a Douluo Heavenly King? Naturally, the Star Spirit Heavenly King was not afraid. Her soul rings flickered. A faint shadow appeared from the Star Spirit Heavenly King. There was a real star shining on the head of the shadow. It wasn't constructed by soul power. Instead, it was his soul core. Soul manifestation. Wang Feng's eyes lit up. The mental strength of this Star Spirit Heavenly King had already reached an extremely high level. This shadow was the powerful soul of the Star Spirit Heavenly King. Wang Feng had underestimated this Star Spirit Heavenly King. To be able to reach this level, even if this Star Spirit Heavenly King's body was destroyed, he might be able to cultivate again. The shadow was exactly the same as the Star Spirit Heavenly King. The moment it appeared, it directly entered the little girl's soul. If I can devour one soul demon, I can devour a second one. The Star Spirit Heavenly King's eyes flickered. But this time, it won't be so easy for you to form a soul link. The soul shadow's body was like snow, and a huge amount of mental strength attacked the soul of this soul demon. In an instant, the soul of this soul demon began to disappear as if it was being eroded by the wind. It let out a violent roar. From the outside, the entire room was filled with gusts of cold wind, but it was accompanied by waves of silver light that shone like stars. Two different spiritual forms intertwined in midair. Situ Han and Zhang Lishuan could vaguely feel something. Wang Feng, on the other hand, could sense it clearly. He only frowned slightly. In this confrontation, the Star Spirit Heavenly King clearly had the upper hand. That soul demon wasn't at the 10-ring level, but only at the 9-ring level. And he only had a soul. His mental strength wasn't stronger than the Star Spirit Heavenly King's. On the contrary, the soul bestowed by the Star Spirit Heavenly King's powerful martial soul was very powerful. In addition, he was already prepared and had a precedent. It was very easy to fight against him. But was it that simple? In just a moment, the soul demon's soul shrank by a third. At this moment, a hoarse sneer sounded in the little girl's soul. If you devour me, this little girl won't be able to live either. Because her soul has already fused with mine. If you devour me, then her soul will also be devoured by you. She will definitely die. The Star Spirit Heavenly King was stunned. Faced with this choice, even she was stunned for a moment. It was this moment. The soul demon suddenly sneered and suddenly let out a roar, pouncing towards the Star Spirit Heavenly King's soul. In a battle of souls, the slightest carelessness would result in eternal damnation. Seeing this, the Star Spirit Heavenly King suddenly came back to his senses and felt his soul tremble. In a flash, he immediately pulled himself out of the little girl's soul. Vaguely, the soul demon's wild and arrogant laughter seemed to ring in his ears. Boom! The soul suddenly returned to its original position, and a wave of soul power exploded in the void. Endless light seemed to want to annihilate everything. The Star Spirit Heavenly King took a few steps back, his face pale, and cold sweat dripped down his forehead. Right at this moment, a voice rang out from the underworld. The exploding silver light was instantly offset and dissipated into nothingness. The Star Spirit Heavenly King was supported by a soft hand from behind. He turned around slightly and saw Zhang Lishuan supporting him. "Star Spirit Heavenly King, are you all right?" Zhang Lishuan hurriedly asked. They were outside and couldn't see clearly what had happened, but from the looks of it, it didn't look good. The Star Spirit Heavenly King took a few deep breaths and forcefully suppressed the feeling of his soul shaking. After adjusting his breathing for a while, his face recovered a little. "Soul Demon?" Wang Feng asked. The Star Spirit Heavenly King sighed softly and said, "It's a soul demon. The situation is a little troublesome." She quickly told them about the little girl's situation. After hearing this, Zhang Lishuan and Situ Han immediately fell silent. "Her situation can't be solved anymore," the Star Spirit Heavenly King said in a low voice. "The soul demon's soul has already merged with her soul. No matter how many methods I have, it will be difficult to solve it. Otherwise, we can only kill her. If he killed her, then the matter of the soul charmer would not be solved. Not killing her, there would be endless trouble. The soul demon would not listen to their wisdom. Just now, he had already taken advantage of the Star Spirit Heavenly King's distraction and almost severely injured his soul again. Fortunately, the Star Spirit Heavenly King was already prepared. Soul demon, soul fusion. Wang Feng was deep in thought. He suddenly smiled and said, "If that's the case, then it's just right." With that, Wang Feng walked in front of the little girl. 7 purple patterns flashed across his body. A milky white halo was enshrouded in the center of Wang Feng's palm. Wang Feng slowly spat out 2 words, "Redemption." End of chapter. Chapter 1257. Pure and holy power gushed out from Wang Feng's palm. The light enveloped the entire room. The pure white light seemed to purify everything in the world. Feeling this power, all sinful souls would be saved. The moment the light shone, a mournful cry rang out in the little girl's head. Then, wisps of black smoke rose from the little girl's head. The little girl's eyes flickered with a pure white light. "This is," the soul demon's intermittent voice had just begun to ring out when it lost its will under the invincible power. To be precise, he had been redeemed. Origin Tribulation Godking's second great origin energy. After Wang Feng reached level 40, he hadn't used it much. Although he wasn't a spiritual type soul master, Wang Feng's own spiritual power was very strong. He had been cultivating the front secret word all this time. Although it was still not enough compared to a spiritual type soul master like Heavenly King Star Spirit, it was still not enough. However, it was enough to use a second source energy. In less than 10 breaths, the little girl trembled slightly. The soul demon had fused with the little girl's soul. Heavenly King Star Spirit could not separate the two. He could either kill the little girl or allow the soul of the soul demon to remain hidden in the little girl's body. However, the essence of redemption could purify the souls of Solfians. It healed the soul, restored the soul, purified evil, and so on. The energy contained in this redemption represented the purest power of light in the world. If 2 origin powers of the same level were to fight against each other, be it soul demons, evil soul masters, or evil soul beasts, none of them would be able to escape the power of the redemption origin. Under the power of redemption, the soul demon's soul slowly disappeared in just 10 breaths. The pure white and warm energy was healing the little girl's injured soul at the same time. As far as Wang Feng could see, the girl's soul was curled up in her sea of consciousness. It was like a phantom. He was trembling. Wang Fengxin sighed. No matter what, her father had lost his life because of the soul-bonding beast. It was all because of the influence of the soul renderer. Of course, Wang Feng didn't need to be responsible for the soul contract master. That was because it was his choice to become a soul contractor. Now that he had made this choice, he would be responsible for whatever he encountered in the future. But it could be said this way. In reality, Wang Fengxin felt a little guilty. But that didn't change Wang Feng's mind. This kind of situation was something that soul charlatans would inevitably regret when they spread the word. It was impossible to completely avoid these things. There were countless soul cultivators in the world, each with their own thoughts. Wang Feng couldn't possibly control everyone. He controlled the heartwarming power and wrapped it around the little girl's soul. A moment later, the little girl's trembling body calmed down. Her eyes regained consciousness, and all her memories began to flow through her soul from beginning to end. Woo woo woo! In an instant, tears filled the little girl's eyes. Wang Feng slowly retracted his power. From a low sob to a heart-wrenching cry. She looked like she wasn't even 6 years old, and her martial spirit had yet to awaken, but she had already encountered such a situation. To the little girl, being unaware was the biggest blow in her life. Wang Feng could heal the little girl's heart and restore her soul. But it couldn't heal the little girl's feelings. The crying also woke up the star spirit Heavenly King and the others. The few of them recovered from their daze, and were still in a daze for a moment. Especially the star spirit Heavenly King. Her face was as calm as an ancient well, without any expression. However, he was extremely shocked in his heart. What was that sacred power just now? To be able to directly destroy the soul of the soul demon while preserving the little girl's soul, and even restoring it. This was truly unbelievable. Wang Feng walked over, hugged the little girl, and said in a low voice, "Your father is not dead. He just went to another world." The crying stopped. The little girl suddenly raised her tear-filled face and looked at Wang Feng. Her eyes were stunned and she couldn't believe it. "Big brother, is what you said true?" Wang Feng nodded and said, "It's true. That's a world made up of good people. Your father went to that place." "I don't believe it. Big brother, you're lying to me. Father is clearly dead." The little girl rubbed her eyes, but her tears seemed to be about to fall again. "And I was the one who killed father." Wang Feng coughed a few times and said, "I'm really not lying to you. Also, you didn't kill father. This has nothing to do with you. Don't think too much. Believe big brother. When you become stronger in the future, you might be able to go to that world and see your father again." After Wang Feng finished speaking, he blocked the little girl's line of sight and waved to the people behind him. He motioned for them to carry the body of the little girl's father away first. The little girl blinked her eyes and seemed to accept Wang Feng's explanation. Wang Feng patted the little girl's head. A 4 or 5-year-old child was still easy to talk to. If she was a few years older, it would probably be difficult to deceive her. But it was only temporarily appeased. Sidhu Han immediately sent people to carry away the corpse of the soul-carving beast and the little girl's father. At this moment, the star spirit Heavenly King walked over and stared at the little girl with starlight in his eyes. In an instant, the little girl's eyes began to look tired, and after a few breaths, she fell into a deep sleep. She fell into the arms of the star spirit Heavenly King. Although her soul has been restored, she has exhausted too much of her mental energy. Coupled with the stimulation, I let her sleep for the time being. The star spirit Heavenly King said. Wang Feng nodded. Since she had been appeased, letting the little girl sleep temporarily was naturally the best result. Nascent Shadow Sect. Zhang Lishuan looked at the little girl and couldn't help but clench her hands. A sect of the Federation actually dared to join forces with an evil soul master. This was a huge crime. This shouldn't be done by the nascent shadow sect. Wang Feng shook his head. Zhang Lishuan was stunned. How is that possible? Indeed, it can't be done by the nascent shadow sect, the Star Spirit Heavenly King said slowly. But Zhang Lishuan wanted to say something. Think about it, there should be some soul charmers in the Central City District, Wang Feng said indifferently. Why are they the only ones who suffered? There were obviously more soul charmers in the Central City District than this father and daughter pair. Although there were few, there were still a few of them. If the nascent shadow sect and that evil soul master wanted to make a move, why did they only choose this father and daughter pair? Very simple, the nascent shadow sect didn't participate. They chose this father and daughter pair because they had a conflict with Lung Shuang from the nascent shadow sect during the day. Since they were chosen to make a move, then naturally, the nascent shadow sect could take the blame for everything. They would even bear the crime of colluding with an evil soul master. Wang Feng was curious before. Although the nascent shadow sect had a grudge with soul charmers. But if they made a move during the competition, such as killing that soul-carving beast or this middle-aged man, wouldn't they be unable to find any loopholes? Because it wasn't forbidden for people to die in the Summit Group competition. They only needed to bribe the middle-aged man's opponent. Or they would meet this middle-aged man themselves. The middle-aged man came to the Central City District to participate in the Summit Group and spread the word about soul charmers, not just to be a spectator. Therefore, he would definitely participate in the competition. There would be plenty of opportunities. Why did they choose to make a move at this time and leave this evidence behind? The nascent shadow sect wasn't that stupid. They colluded with evil soul masters to plot against the Heavenly King. Even if they were given 10 guts, it wouldn't be enough. Therefore, it could only be that evil soul master who did it. Furthermore, they could frame the nascent shadow sect and make the Federation kill each other. There was a conflict during the day, so it was natural for people to think that it was the nascent shadow sect who did it. This was also why the other party didn't choose other soul charmers, but this father and daughter pair. Zhang Lishuan was enlightened. What a vicious method, Zhang Lishuan whispered. Although it wasn't the nascent shadow sect. At this moment, the Star Spirit Heavenly King said indifferently, it can also be them. Wang Fengxin said. It seemed like he wanted to teach the nascent shadow sect a lesson. He could use this matter to his advantage. Because whether this matter was done by the nascent shadow sect or not, it still depended on the Martial Soul Palace. To put it bluntly, even if it wasn't the nascent shadow sect who did it, there were all kinds of evidence at the scene that could prove that it was the nascent shadow sect who did it. For example, the soul-bonding beast and the demon-melting herb. For example, this father and daughter pair had a conflict with Lung Shuang of the nascent shadow sect. They could all be used to make a fuss. However, it all depended on the Martial Soul Palace's decision. As a heavenly king, he naturally couldn't lack foresight, means, and wisdom. Since the matter had already happened, how could they make the most of the consequences of this matter? Speaking of which, it might be a little cruel, but the Heavenly King was no longer just a titled Doulu. He was also the leader of the Federation, so he naturally had to consider more. Siduhan, take good care of this little girl. This matter will be announced tomorrow. 2 hours later, the Martial Soul Palace will send an order. At that time, you just have to follow the instructions. Heavenly King Star Spirit glanced at Wang Feng. Oh right, she said that the champion of this competition will be you. You won't let her down. This was a firm tone, it must have been Shiyu who said it. Shiyu knew her true identity, but she didn't seem to say much. Perhaps she still had some doubts about Wang Feng's current state. After saying that, Heavenly King Star Spirit's tone fluctuated a little. Although she was the one who asked me to come, I didn't expect that someone would secretly plot against me this time. If not for your reminder, My old injuries might have relapsed. I can't thank you enough. If you need anything in the future, I, Shen Xingling, will only help. Simply put, he owed her a favor. With that, Heavenly King's star spirit flew away. Wang Feng didn't take it to heart. After this matter, Wang Feng didn't have the mood to rest. He returned to his room and looked at the sky until dawn. The next day, this matter was naturally announced. However, now that the matter was clear and the little girl had recovered, this matter caused a huge commotion. Most people were filled with indignation and anger towards the appearance of evil soul masters. They sympathized and pitied the father and daughter pair. However, there were also people who felt that this matter was also the fault of the soul contract master. If the father and daughter hadn't become soul contract masters, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. Of course, this was a minority. What a joke, the Federation had already spoken. Most of the people who said such words were against soul contract masters. There were also people who thought that this matter was not only done by evil soul masters, but also by the Shadow Genesis sect. This was because during the day, the people from the Shadow Genesis sect had a conflict with the woman. There were many people who supported this statement, however. The Federation didn't say anything about this, but the Shadow Genesis sect was indeed shocked and broke out in cold sweat. What a joke! No matter how powerful a sect was, it was still dependent on the Federation. If they dared to act recklessly, they could be destroyed with a flick of a finger. With the Shi Douluo as the center, none of the 12 Douluo heavenly kings were easy to deal with. Especially the Shi Douluo himself. He was the strongest person on the continent, the most talented person in the history of the Federation, and a leader with countless laurels. With him in the Federation, no sect dared to act recklessly. If they dared to collude with evil soul masters, they were simply courting death. No matter how powerful a sect was, they wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Ever since the Shi Douluo took over, he had destroyed some arrogant sects, clans, and cities. However, even in the Federation, they still hadn't found out who that evil soul master was. This piqued Wang Feng's curiosity. One had to know that this was the central city, where security was tight and there were 12 Douluo heavenly kings. Yet, they still couldn't find this evil soul master. Several days later, Swan Feather Plaza. The curtains of the tournament had officially been drawn. The opening ceremony. Wang Feng also saw Hui Yuhao and the others after almost a year. Their group was led by Ma Xiaotao and led by several teachers. Hui Yuhao, Wang Dong, Xiao Xiao, Jiang Nannan, Su Sanshi, He Kaitu, Tang Ye, Bei Bei, and the others. They had obtained points from their respective teams and came to Martial Soul City. After such a long time, Wang Feng had already heard about their situation from Zhang Lishuan. He didn't disturb them immediately. The youth category and the pinnacle categories competitions were separated. The youth categories competition was naturally the first. The pinnacle categories competition was usually held in the afternoon or at night. Right now, Swan Feather Plaza was filled with the best soul masters in the Federation. At least, that was what Wang Feng felt. In this place, one could feel the grandeur of high-grade soul masters walking about everywhere. Wang Feng had already sensed at least 40 titled Douluo. There were also countless soul Douluo and soul sages. All sorts of soul tools and equipment were placed on the bodies of the people around them in an orderly manner. The plaza was split into several sections, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was filled with people. There were sections for competitors, and sections for spectators. Wang Feng estimated that there were around 10,000 people in the pinnacle category. However, in reality, there were more than 10,000 high-tier soul masters in the spectators' stands. Wang Feng didn't know how many high-tier soul masters there were, but it was definitely 6 to 7 times more than the number of competitors. Evidently, most of them were here to watch. One couldn't underestimate the benefits of spectating a battle. For a battle between high-tier soul beasts, the the benefits of spectating were considerable. However, most of the spectators were here to watch a battle between titled Douluo. After all, it was extremely beneficial to watch a battle between titled Douluo. Wang Feng was surrounded by powerful individuals from various sects and regions. However, most of them were above 40 years old. It was extremely rare for someone as young as Wang Feng to participate in the pinnacle category. End of chapter. Chapter 1258. As more and more soul masters entered the arena and found their seats, Wang Feng could feel that there were more and more powerful soul masters. The little koan shark on his back seemed to be excited. It was like a ball wrapped around itself and attached itself to Wang Feng's back. From afar, it looked like a package, but also like a small pet. Before it grew bigger, it looked harmless. Even its canine teeth were hidden in its mouth, only revealing a sharp corner. "Hey, little brother, you're very young. Why did you bring a pet to participate in the competition?" It didn't take long for more soul cultivators to fill up the space next to Wang Feng. Naturally, he attracted the attention of quite a few people around him. The one who spoke was a man in his 30s. His face was flushed and he looked equally excited. He wore a capable combat uniform and had long hair. He was quite handsome. However, Wang Feng saw the emblem on his combat uniform. The Academy's emblem. It was a black sickle emblem. Around the sickle, there were 5 different colored flags. It looked very strange. Wang Feng grinned and touched the little koan shark on his shoulder, saying, "I'm a soul contractor. This is my soul contracted beast." With that, Wang Feng patted the little koan shark. The little koan shark bounced like a ball. It looked quite bouncy. A soul contractor. The man was stunned and looked at Wang Feng in surprise. "I didn't expect little brother to be a soul contractor. In the past few months, the news has been spreading like wildfire in our academy. Speaking of which, I have a few students around your age who are clamoring to become a soul contractor." He sighed and said, "Oh right, I'm Long from East Maple Academy. I'm a teacher. I'm currently rank 78. East Maple Academy." Wang Feng smiled. When he saw the emblem on the man's combat uniform, he already guessed it. As for the emblem, it was even more interesting. "Actually, I didn't want to participate." Long sighed, "But my cute students said they wanted to see teacher's performance in the Pinnacle group. I had no choice, so I came to participate in the Pinnacle group. I planned to swim 1 round. These kids are too naive. With their cultivation, they won't be able to understand any of the matches in the Pinnacle group." Although he said that, there was still some pride in Long's eyes. He seemed to be proud of his student. "You really love your students," Wang Feng said with a smile. "Of course." Dragon could not help but puff out his chest. "Our East Maple Academy's team has achieved first place in the district's youth group competition. Among the 7 contestants, 3 of them are my students." The 3 major political regions were divided into several subregions. To be able to obtain first place in the subregion, there was no need to doubt their strength. As the host academy of the Federation, its strength was second only to the Shrek Academy in the entire Federation. In fact, to a certain extent, he was even more powerful. One had to realize that the Shi Douluo was the pavilion master of the Spirit Mandate Pavilion. Wang Feng's line of sight followed the youth division on the other side. Because it was quite far away, Wang Feng's eyesight was amazing, and he was able to find the members of the East Maple Academy in the sea of people. In the past, the requirement for the youth division was to be under the age of 25, but later on, there were many changes to this age. Now, the requirements were getting higher and higher. They had to be under the age of 23 and under level 70. This was because as the strength of ordinary soul masters increased, the requirements would naturally become higher and higher. Because there was no martial soul true body below level 70, there were many variables, which also meant that there was a possibility of challenging someone of a higher rank. There was no lower limit because of the appearance of soul engineers and soul tools. This allowed many low-level soul masters to have the strength to challenge mid-level soul masters. Amazing! Wang Feng nodded. These few disciples of yours are all very strong. In the past, they were considered very strong. Dragon sighed. But this year, it's no small matter. You are a soul master and you know what this profession means. Although many soul masters do not think that soul masters can replace soul masters, there are many opinions. But to be honest, the Federation has not made clear rules for soul masters. If they fight, soul masters will definitely win. Our previous opponents, the Shrek Academy, are all soul masters in this year's competition. Furthermore, they are the only team in the youth division formed by soul masters. Dragon raised his head and sighed. According to their analysis of the situation in the group competition, our East Maple Academy's chances of winning are less than 30%. And so far, their soul beasts have only appeared 3 to 4 times. They have hidden their trump cards very well. Wang Feng looked at Dragon's expression and said, "Since you can't beat them, why don't you join them? Can't you all become soul masters too?" Dragon shook his head and said firmly, "How can we do that? As soul masters, how can we change so easily? But fortunately, our East Maple Academy's soul tool department is stronger. We might not lose to them this time. However, if we lose this time, our East Maple Academy might really have to join them." East Maple Academy had the Douluo, a Class 9 soul engineer, so it was normal for their soul tool department to be strong. But the youth division is just a small competition. It's normal to lose and win. Dragon waved his hand and said generously, "It's a competition every 5 years. Over the years, Shrek Academy has not always been able to win the championship. Our East Maple Academy has also won a few championships, as well as the other sections. Only the Pinnacle Group competition is a true showdown between the strong. Little brother, you're also participating in the Pinnacle Group competition to spread the word about Soul Masters, right?" Dragon patted Wang Feng's shoulder. "I heard that there are quite a few high-level Soul Masters participating in the Pinnacle Group competition. One died 2 days ago. What a pity. You have to be careful too. This competition doesn't forbid death. Various sects, academies, and clans have also sent high-level soul masters to participate. Other than that, there are also many other powers." Wang Feng smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern. I didn't expect the people from your East Maple Academy to be so enthusiastic." Dragon waved his hand and said, "It's nothing. I just saw that you're not bad-looking and have some of my charm when I was young, so I said a few more words. If you were ugly, I might not even be interested in talking." The other high-grade soul masters couldn't help but snicker. "Come on, you were so ugly when you were young. You were so ugly that you could only swallow your saliva when you walked on the street. You have the nerve to say something like that? Dragon, we haven't seen each other for a few years. Your cultivation hasn't improved, but your skin is getting thicker." The one who spoke was a man of about 36 or 37 years old among the high-level soul masters. He wore a white battle suit and had long black hair that reached his waist. His face was like jade, and he had a bit of an ancient style. The Academy's emblem was also engraved on the battle suit. He must be from another academy and was an old acquaintance of Dragon. Wang Feng laughed secretly and didn't say anything. "Tisk, isn't this Ikong? We haven't seen each other for a few years, and you've become more and more flamboyant. With such long hair, do you want to be a woman?" Dragon glanced and sneered. "Why don't your Star Luo Aries Academy change its name to Star Luo Goddess Academy? I saw that in your academy there are actually 5 males and 2 females. Even the 3 substitutes are 3 females. My God, is this really the Star Luo Political District's Aries Academy?" Aries Academy. When Wang Feng heard this name, he felt that it was a little familiar. After thinking about it, He realized that this academy hadn't disappeared and had remained. He couldn't help but feel emotional. Why, do you discriminate against women? The man named Ikong wasn't afraid of Dragon's sarcasm at all. His expression didn't change as he retorted, Dongfeng Academy's Spirit Mandate Pavilion's Pavilion Master, the current leader of the 12 Heavenly Kings, Shi Douluo, is also a woman. Could it be that you even dare to discriminate against your Spirit Mandate Pavilion's Pavilion Master? These words turned the tables on Ikong and immediately made Dragon speechless. Even if he had 100 guts, he wouldn't dare. After that, the few of them chatted for a while. Wang Feng listened happily. From these two, he heard a lot of news about sects and academies that he hadn't heard of before. Actually, this kind of situation was happening in many small circles in the square. High-level soul contract masters were at least 30 or 40 years old and had experienced many ups and downs. Some had even gone through 2 pinnacle competitions. Naturally, they would meet many old acquaintances here. At this moment, as if sensing something, Wang Fengxin suddenly looked in another direction. That place wasn't far. It was less than 1,000 meters away. But in the crowd, Wang Feng immediately saw a silver-haired girl. He had never seen her before, but she gave Wang Feng a strange feeling. He couldn't help but frown slightly. He vaguely felt that she was somewhat familiar. It disappeared in a flash. "Who is that girl?" Wang Fengxin said. At this moment, the square suddenly quieted down. Swish, swish, swish. More than 10 rays of light descended from the distance in an instant. They landed on the high platform at the front of the Hongyu Arena. Wang Feng finally saw Shiyu again. However, she didn't look much different from before. The only difference was that she was wearing a grand dress. This girl was just like the first time Wang Feng met her. Her special temperament made it easy for people to forget her gender and appearance. Especially after knowing her identity, the halos on her head made it easier for people to forget her appearance. In addition, there were the other 8 Heavenly Kings. The remaining 3 Heavenly Kings had lost contact for 8 months because of the extreme north. They didn't seem to have been found. However, the Federation naturally wouldn't say that they lost contact. They would only say that they were dealing with special matters. The other 8 Heavenly Kings, in addition to Heavenly King Star Spirit, there were 4 men and 3 women. The 4 male Heavenly Kings were Heavenly King Cloud, Heavenly King Law, Heavenly King Feather, and Heavenly King Soldier. The 3 women were Heavenly King Nan Yuan, Heavenly King Dongli, and Heavenly King Wan. Wang Feng swept his gaze across them. Their soul power ranks were all very high. Their starting point was at least rank 97. Among them, Heavenly King Yun, Heavenly King Bing, and Heavenly King Dongli had reached rank 98. Heavenly King Nan Yuan and Heavenly King Yu had reached rank 99. One could imagine how extraordinary the 12 Heavenly Kings of Douluo were. At the same time, from support to healing to offense, the 12 Heavenly Kings of Douluo had all of them. They included every element. The 12 most powerful people in the Federation's Soul Master world were naturally not simple. At the same time, there were also a few other titled Douluo, such as the Honorary Heavenly King, Xianzi. There were also a few other people with special identities. Most of them were titled Douluo, who had extremely high status and reputation in the Federation. Their strength was also above rank 97. This force could be said to be the top existence in the Federation. In theory, even the Heavenly Kings of Douluo were qualified to participate in the Peak Group competition. This was because most of the winners of the Peak Group would become the 12 Heavenly Kings of Douluo. If they could win several rounds consecutively, the Federation would be convinced. However, from the looks of it, only the Shi Douluo could hold the title of continent's number 1 for 3 consecutive rounds. As the main figures of the competition appeared, the opening ceremony really began. The Heavenly Kings of Douluo, who sat on the high platform, gave their speeches. The first few were still fine. Only the Douluo floated in midair and stood above everyone. He slowly opened his mouth. It's another year's peak group competition. Soul Masters from all over the Federation, do you know why our Federation's Martial Soul Palace has given out a set of 100,000-year soul bones as a reward this time? The Douluo's words were like a bomb. Compared to the previous heavenly kings who were more polite and tactful, the Douluo's words were more direct. That's right? Why would they give out a set of 100,000-year soul bones this time? One had to know that such a treasure could be said to be the only one in the Federation's treasury. Everyone listened in silence. Does everyone know the origin of this set of soul bones? The Douluo swept his gaze across the huge Hongyu Plaza. His dignified and calm voice spread throughout the entire plaza. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone could hear him clearly. He didn't need any soul tools. He didn't need any soul tools to transmit his voice. His voice could be clearly transmitted to everyone's ears. This set of soul bones came from two soul masters who fought side by side with us during the Fifth World War of the Soul Beasts. As everyone knows, the Fifth World War of the Soul Beasts was a war where all the soul masters on the continent worked together with the soul beasts on the continent to fight against the evil soul beasts. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The Fifth World War of the Soul Beasts was a war where humans and soul beasts rarely worked together. Not only that, but the Sun-Moon Empire was involved as well. Humans suffered great losses in that war. Many soul masters died, and many soul masters died. The soul beasts also suffered great casualties. The 100,000-year soul beasts were like straws that were blown by a strong wind as they fell in droves. What no one expected was that this set of soul bones came from that era. The Fifth World War of the Soul Beasts was already thousands of years ago. Back then, in order to commemorate the fallen soul beasts, we didn't absorb the soul bones that they dropped after they died. Most of them were kept safe in our Martial Soul Palace, to show our respect, but now we are taking them out as rewards. Do you know why the Martial Soul Palace is doing this? The Douluo's tone suddenly changed, and everyone was shocked. Why? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.